was what the clerk, what their audit reflected was to TDT, and then they gave the remaining, I think it was almost $300,000 that year to the county.
Went to the general fund.
Went to the general fund.
In the county. Okay. Okay.
And it's only fair to point out that this Maximus is here because some feel that the county should be getting a larger chunk of that money.
Yes.
Well, and also there's some that feel that
The county has never asked.
smaller town.
Yeah, the county's never asked for an allocation prior to FY15. Because we had so many concerns with the method of allocation, they agreed to hold off and do the study and come to an agreement. So they didn't charge for FY15 yet, and we expect that once it's resolved, we'll have a better idea of where we stand and what needs to be allocated to each department.
Can't wait.
Does anyone have any questions or?
Any more questions? Training, I noticed you put a little bit more in there. Did you move that from the memberships to training? Is that what that is?
There are actually, yes. If you look at the largest spreadsheet that you have, I have some explanations off to the side.
Right.
We actually have a lot more account numbers going into the FY16 budget to do a better tracking of how we spend our money. In previous years, we only had 9,000, 9,010, 9,020, 9,030, 9,040, 9,050. And basically that put admin, marketing, and sales all in one lump sum. And this year we broke it out so that administration is 9,000, sales is 9,005. If you look at the top of your sheet, I tell you, I have the numbers for myself, but I tell you which the departments they are. So for sales and marketing, they've never had their own account lines before. So this is the first year for that. Additionally, in previous years, only some of our funding elements had the 5,500 account, which is training. We had it in code enforcement last year. I made sure that every one of them had it this year. And another new account that we have is equipment under 1,000, so that we could identify small purchase equipment that we needed that wasn't necessarily an operating supply, but really equipment that we need to keep track of.
Good, thank you. Any other questions? All right.
I don't really need a motion. I just need to make sure if you all have any questions between now and next meeting that you let me know if you have any input. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right.
Good morning. It's my honor to be in front of you today on the agenda item number 4, which is to request a recommendation for the third and final renewal of the Thunder contract. Thunder Communications, as you know, is our advertising media services. This is part of the existing agreement that this extension is allowed with no changes to the existing agreement, which was originally executed in 2012. So we will be seeking your recommendation of the BCC to utilize that third and final renewal of 1 year, which is October 1st, matched up with the fiscal year.
All right, any questions from the board? All right, is a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. Commissioner? Second, Commissioner Meadows. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
You can breathe now. It's way too easy.
Everyone here, council members, appreciate your time this morning. I'm Brian Kellenberg. Business this morning is a request to recommend to the BCC to approve staff's request to amend the multi-use trail landscape maintenance contract with Watercrest. We've started our second year of the Watercrest. It was a 2-year agreement with a 1-year extension. After the first year, we identified some areas that had been left off the contract. Those areas were typically areas in front of resort communities that had a right-of-way maintenance, landscape maintenance contract with the county. Whenever resort communities come to the county, say they would like to improve our area and our right of way, and also comes with associated maintenance contract. The two areas that were identified that were not maintenance contract are the parking areas, the parallel parking areas associated with the adjacent to Wellsdale Beach, approximately a quarter mile of palm trees, a small island with building plants and all that. The second area is the area between USC Suites and the Amalfi Coast. It's pretty much just grass and right away there. So the information included in your package is a change order from Valley Crest, the two areas associated. The area associated with the parallel parking is approximately $9,500 annual cost. The area with in between UC Suites and the Amalfi Coast is approximately $4,500. Total is $14,100. We're looking for a recommendation taken to the DCC to add to their annual contract.
Brian, on this map, which segment are you adding?
It's actually two sections. The first section would be parallel parking on both sides of the road in front or seaward of the Seascape Resort area, the Majestic Sound Seascape.
Okay.
Which is all of the concrete paved parking areas that we put in parallel to the road in our right of way. It includes there's a small planting island about every 4 spaces that has irrigation, palm tree, small plum alleys or river grass in it. And the second area is the area in between NC Suites on the north side of the road, between NC Suites and Amalfi Coast. That's a new development that went in there that has not requested to do any work in the right of way. So it's an area that's been left off. Our own maintenance department has been doing the area, the Wellsdale area, but we're sort of falling behind during the summer season. So
Okay. Can you make sure that our public works guys know about this, the addition of this? Because
yes, ma'am.
just let them know, because sometimes people call them and then they go out, and then we don't know. So just let them know which sections have been added so that we don't double team. Thanks. Thank you, Brian.
This is done on a monthly basis? Is it
No,
just
sir,
one
it's
week?
weekly basis. The contract requires them to touch every part of the trail every 7 days. So they'll send a cutting crew and then a cleaning crew. They also remove sand and all that.
How often do we train the palm trees? I mean, is that
Palm trees will be trimmed annually in this section right here.
a normal, is it twice a year, once a year?
Annually, once a year. Typically done the first of summer.
Okay, I see it.
You gotta wait until they see it.
See, yeah.
They'll just come back.
Me, I think trimming them twice a year. Questions?
Right, is Edgewater side, is it ever being done where Regions Bank, Edgewater, we're on the opposite side, we're on the beach side. But I have never seen anybody, and I walk from Edgewater to Mainsail all the time, down all the dirt roads to Sedona. And I have never seen a crew out there. And the grass is growing over the bike path and over the sidewalk.
That's an area we have bike path on both sides of the road. Technically, we have bike paths on the north side of the road there. And I believe your area is actually under a maintenance contract. Let me do some research to verify.
Did you find out when they come?
Yes, ma'am.
Because we've got a vacant lot there that,
Well, if the bike path is on the north side, they won't.
I'm on the south side.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm on the beach side.
Let me do some research to see what area, make sure there is a maintenance agreement, because I believe what the situation we have there is actually that path on that side of the road is really part of those condominiums or those resort, those businesses, maintenance agreement for that section of life.
Well, the county came and put it in and took up a driveway that's circled in our building, and y'all put it in and took out our circular drive.
This says here on this map,
Yes, ma'am.
you look at it, where you see Winn-Dixie and all that, that's the section. You see that the TDC's maintenance of the bike path goes to, it looks like it goes right to the east of Edgewater. And then near Winn-Dixie, it picks up and says it's maintained by others. So the bike path on that section is definitely maintained by TDC.
On the Winn-Dixie side or the side across the street?
Wherever the bike path
On the north side of the road.
is.
Well, we have two, one on our side of the road and one on the Winn-Dixie side. One on the beach side, one on the Winn-Dixie side.
You're talking about the new section that was put in over there.
No, y'all put ours in Region Bikes and all down there. The sidewalk goes all the way to Main Street.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, y'all dug it up to do some work in front of those new houses. But y'all put our bike path thing in 15 years ago.
How wide is, it might not be a bike path, it might be a sidewalk. I mean, there is a distinction.
This is between 6 and 8 feet wide.
Okay, well, there is a distinction made. We got, their contract was to maintain all the bike multi-use paths, so you'll look into that.
Yeah, we do some research so I can answer you factually.
I got another question. Do you guys do a monthly walkthrough or not necessarily walkthrough driving?
We do a monthly review with Valley Press. They send us a weekly report, and we have a quarterly drive-through with Jim Baker. It includes Jim, me, and Josh, and the Valley Press representative associated with that portion of my
If they don't meet any certain criteria for that month, do you get an adjustment on the bill and all that stuff? Or
We have not, we don't have a practice like that. So we take the weekly reports, take our monthly drive-through to correct any deficiencies.
I know, I don't know if it's different for the county or not, but at the Hilton, we actually have I don't know if the town is a consultant, but a third person that we do the walkthrough with.
Mhm.
And if there's any discrepancies or variances, that will be actually adjusted and agreed upon,
Mhm.
so that you credit back. It's not necessarily money, but you get a credit back for next month, what you pay. So I don't know if that can help the town or not, so.
Yeah, I know Sandestin's contract is structured like that also, but ours is basically because we have guys out in the area all the time. If we see a problem, we call them, they come out and they fix the problem. It's not just on that weekly or monthly inspections.
So you let them know that they need to do these things and they do.
I do that,
Yeah.
especially the feeder roads, they're real bad.
Are you happy with the job these guys are doing?
Yes, sir. Like I said, we have some, as you pointed out, we have a few issues on the feeder roads, north-south roads. We identified it as really construction garbage that blows out of that truck.
Well, I know our section is the best it's ever been, the section between Blue Mountain and Brayton Beach.
We started off the first year with getting it, trimmed up, cut, and establishing a north-east traffic right of way, so to speak. This year, we've identified areas for repair. We did a few overlays at the end of last year to correct some immediate problems. This year, we're working on some complete removal and replacement, design and permitting, and then we do construction in the off-season. We also have some plans for some stormwater issues. We're trying to work with Public Works to do it in concert with any work that they're doing on the road. Some areas we've already identified that just have to be done to reduce standing water after rains and stuff like that. So this next year, with the approval of the budget, you should see a lot more improvements as far as actual road surface. Yes, sir.
Brian, I'm not questioning the 14,000, but just as a process, when you ask for an addition like this, do you ever compare it to anybody else's prices, or do you just take their price?
In this case, I did not get a comparative price since it's under contract. I did a brief analysis of the additional work scope, the length of it compared to the whole thing, and it seemed to be in line.
Okay. I'm not questioning the number, I'm just saying, as a process, if a vendor knows that you're not going to go out for competitive bids, all of a sudden, the number gets bumped up a little bit.
Yes,
So
sir.
we want to make sure we keep them honest with it. And the other thing, Jim, you referred to, I have a role in the Sandestin landscaping thing, and we have a guy, maybe it's the same one you use, Gary, a fellow from Atlanta that comes down once a month, and he walks the whole property and gives us a report. And we found that his fee more than pays for whatever we have to pay the vendor, because there've been a number of situations where we've had to dock a vendor $5,000 or $6,000 a month for not living up to the standards that we have. So I'm not saying you should do it, just keep an open mind. Maybe there is a way that we can actually save money by spending money.
Yeah, we'll explore some options on that. But you're talking about a third-party threshold inspector type situation. Come in and review.
All right, I'm going to ask for a motion for one other point. I've noticed there's a lot of signs. is there a distance on the bike path? It's been, realtors, I'm a realtor, obviously, realtors are putting their signs almost right on the bike path. It's almost, to me, you know, it's dangerous, because somebody's gonna hit one of them accidentally. I've seen a few in Seagrove, I got an office down in Seagrove, and I see quite a few that, I just, maybe when you're out doing your,
That's the street side code enforcement.
Okay.
They pick up the signs.
But I didn't know if there's-
It's supposed to be out of the right of way, but of course, people don't know where the right of way ends and begins. So, but code enforcement has been addressing real estate signs, and it's just a constant.
I'm trying to.
They had it down on street side code enforcement that was, focusing on signage on 38.
Yeah.
The person has left and gone to a different department, and we touch base with street side code enforcement to see who is taking up those duties. And I'll inquire as to what their efforts are and see if they can ramp it up. Because you're right, it is a problem.
I've been noticing it a lot. I mean, we're doing real well. I mean, real estate's moving and, you know, agents are putting their signs out. It's all good, but I see a safety factor coming into play here. And they're kind of almost encroaching right into the bike
Big
path.
signs?
Both. They're the one-arm signs, and then there are some big ones too. And those one-arms are really the ones that I'm concerned about.
There is all kind of encroachments
Yeah.
onto the
So I just-
right of way.
For safety's sake and for our, you know, liability, we want to make sure that eliminate.
Just check into it and I'll report back.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a motion to approve.
Motion.
First motion to approve, second. Second from Gary. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, council members, the next item on the agenda is it's a special event, marketing grants for your consideration. Last year, what we provided, or what you approved, what the Board of County Commissioners approved, based on your recommendation, was $419,000 in grants, plus $25,000 in contingency for the Southland events, and $30,000 for the North End events. This year, our number of requests for support in the South End went up by about 25%, and the amount went up from $419,000 to $500,000. We're again requesting $25,000 for a contingency, and contingency is for events that pop up that y'all have approved, like the Joffrey Ballet is an example that came in. We didn't know about it at the beginning of the year, or actually a year and a half, and it popped up, and so we supported it. And then we're also asking for $30,000 again in the North End. The events committee met and considered and reviewed all the applications. They did a prioritization, and then the staff sat down and applied dollar amounts to that prioritization. You'll see one of the things, we changed the rubric a little bit this year, and so you'll see some events in September we've never had before, and you'll see some events in May that we've never had before, because the focus of this program is the shoulder season, not to create and support events, and so you're not punished if you have an event in the summer. You're just not rewarded if you have an event in the summer. You're rewarded if you have an event in the shoulder season. So subject to your questions, we would ask that you recommend the BCC approve this distribution for the event grant money for the county.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, I know we talked about this a lot last year as well. Are there new events on here? I mean, you
Yes.
just mentioned some, I know Black Tie is like.
Right, so you have the opera symphony performance, you have the run stuff, if you start at the top of this list, you have the, I don't think, do we fund the Mountain Town last year?
Yes.
Yes. Sparkling Wine and Holiday Lights event, every Christmas story ever told. The Joffrey Ballet was not funded in the plan, but was eventually funded. Arts Quest is going, it's a change, significantly changed. It was one weekend, now it's going to go to 2 weekends and the weekend between. You'll notice digital graffiti is moving into May from June. May is not, so dead and hot, hopefully. And then we did not do the Emerald Coast Blue Marlin Classic this year, but we have done it in the past. And then the Bazaar South is a new event.
What is that? What is Bizarre South? Is that a magazine?
Everything made in South Walton, and so you'll have sort of the festival fair, farmer's market on steroids.
It's a little bit like the West Indies market Rosemary used to have, and I think some of the other communities have, where you have folks.
Where's it
It's
being
not
held?
the, it's not the yard sale.
It's gonna be,
No.
it's gonna be held down at, 38 Avenues, and it's gonna celebrate all things South Walton. And, it's kind of similar to just everything, from the South is what it's gonna celebrate.
Some artists and food and
Architecture, anything that's made here in South Walton.
And is it gonna go on for, as I see here, it says 9 September to November, is it gonna go on like every weekend or something? During that time?
that's 9th, 10th, and 11th of September.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yeah,
you
You
missed
could
it.
read it either way.
Yeah,
9th, 10th,
and
okay.
November 16th.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a long, we're gonna sell till we're out of stuff, and then we're gonna close up shop.
Then you're gonna celebrate, I think, after that. Okay.
There's been some discussion about cutting back on some of the events that are well established that the TDC supported in the past. Is that consistent with this, or are we still kind of going on the same?
That
same
is
pace we had?
consistent a little bit with this. We're having a workshop, the Events Committee Association workshop, June 25th, I believe. Okay, at 9 o'clock right here, it'll be a public meeting. We've invited the marketing committee, and we'll invite y'all to come and provide input on the rubric for FY17. We did, again, we incentivize new events without trying to punish continuing events. But at some point, this money comes from new product, and so, after 30 years, it's not really a new product that's well established. And so what we're trying to do is those well-established events, the philosophy of those well-established events that don't need this money to market, probably shouldn't get this in the long run. And I think one of the ideas you'll see come out of that workshop is, right now we have 2 tiers. We have signature events, which are, can get up to 50,000, and we have experience events, which can get up to 10,000. The signature events last at least 3 days, and there are some other criteria. What we're looking at doing, or what's been discussed, is just having a straight sponsorship, not to exceed like $5,000. For some of these events that are not getting a lot of money, instead of filling out the 19-page application and, providing blood samples and hair samples and everything, we'll make it a 1-page application. And if $2,000 gets, you a silver sponsorship with Stinkies, $2,000 will get us a silver sponsorship, get our name on the back of the T-shirt or whatever, because some of these events, we need to change our structure. We at least need to consider changing our
Are we
structure.
tracking ROI on any of these events?
We are.
Okay.
And Philip will talk about that in the research presentation. Because some of them, Songwriters Festival, I want to say almost $4 million ROI. I mean, some of them are just off the charts. Yeah. So, those are the ones, and that's part of the workshop is we have to figure out the ones that actually bring people here, actually do an ROI. We need to reinforce that. And the ones that don't, they're really nice. We can do a sponsorship or we can be part of it. But we're really looking for some of those home run balls.
Jim?
Yes, sir.
And some of these that we approve, obviously you have a limited source of money to divvy up. Are there, out of the 700 or some odd more, however many applicants we have, are there a lot that we don't choose, that we would like to choose, or we just don't have the funds for?
No, I don't think we were funding. I don't feel like that. I mean, John or Kelly or Cameron. Yeah, the constraint's not funding. We set a funding level, and then we try to figure out. And so there may be some that some members of either the events committee or the staff thought, well, they should have gotten $5,000 more or something. Okay, but we have to stay within the budget. And so somebody's not gonna get that extra $5,000.
Just so we know, okay?
And for perspective, last year, in the last term, there was 2 that were deemed not to have qualified. This year, we deemed all of them to have qualified. So there is a pass-fail.
All right, good. All right, if there's no other questions, we have a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion to accept it.
Motion from Mark Miller, second. Jennifer seconds, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Okay, the next one is beach safety, not lifeguard, beach safety, RFP. That we're asking, it's time to renew it, it expires. Current holder of the contract is South Walton Fire District. And all we're asking for is approval to go to the BCC with the RFP, proposed RFP, scope of services to bid it out.
All right, motion.
I motion to request recommendation to the BCC to approve.
All right, second.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Meadows, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, put in the coastal management contract period. So, as part of the handout, the coastal management contract, there were 2 applicants. The review committee, or screening committee, selected, or is recommending that we go with Taylor Engineering. It was a little different, and I didn't realize this. Brad actually had 2 contracts. He had one contract for $102,000, which was the consulting services and all that, and then he had a contract that was $79,000, right at $79,000, for all what I would call the geotechnical support. So in the $102,000, there was the normal consulting, and then there was the storm consulting, I guess, an HSDR type consulting. And then the other was outsourced. So what we're proposing, and what we've negotiated with Taylor Engineering, is 3 basically statements of work, and the main difference is they will charge us by the hour. Brad was, if we needed him, you know, he came, and if we didn't need him, he didn't come, but he got paid the same, no matter if he came or didn't come. And there was some concern that, you know, the every other month visit didn't warrant the price of the contract. And so what we did was try to change this. Taylor Engineering is local, so we're not paying for them to travel from South Carolina and lodging and things like that. And we think in the end, this will probably save us some money. If you look at the scopes of work or the scopes of services, when you go down, you'll see that actually the total is less than $180,000 for the 3 scopes of work. So hopefully we'll get the same quality service at a reduced cost to the TDC, and it'll be here, so we'll need it. And so we would ask that you recommend to the BCC that we enter into negotiations and that they authorize the chairman to sign a contract once it's negotiated.
Got a quick question, Jim.
Sure.
We've used Taylor Engineering before, haven't we?
We have.
And how was their service then?
I've always thought they did a great job. Matt Trammell is the local person. He's been to multiple meetings, both BCC, TDC, beach management committee meetings, workshops, things like that. They did the geotechnical on the previous project that we did. They did the core samples, or some of the geotechnical. They didn't actually analyze it. That was Dr. Stone. But, so they've done some of the work before. Well-respected organization in this area, as far as I know.
So they provide quick and reliable service?
They do.
Any other questions? Motion to approve? Gary makes a motion, second?
A second.
Jim seconds, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign, motion carries. Thank you.
And I'll be followed by Captain Rao, who will talk to you about beach safety. Wherever he is, there he is, okay.
Thank you. I'm Audie Rattle. I'm the South Walton Bureau Chief for the Walton County Sheriff's Office. I'm guessing that Jim did give you a little handout or email that I sent you. So I'll just quickly recap that. As you may or may not know, Walton County Sheriff deputies are not lifeguards, they're not trained certified lifeguards, but from time to time, we do enter the water when a lifeguard is not available. So having the proper equipment from them is crucial. I think if you ask any South Walton lifeguard, going into the Gulf is nothing like going into a pool and trying to rescue somebody. This is dangerous work. And so that they are not trained to do this and they don't have the experience to do this, we need good equipment in order for them to get out there. This is not only to save their life, but also to save the life of the person that they're trying to help. We're currently updating our special operations procedure about water rescues, and that special operations procedure is including that a deputy, anytime he enters the water, that he has at least 2 flotation devices, one for him, one for the person he's trying to save. So we're looking to add some equipment. Number one is a life vest. It's called an inshore life vest. It has a CO2 cartridge on it. It allows them to wear the life vest, swim as they need to get out to the person, and then at the time that they need flotation, they can then pull the cord and it will give them flotation. This will help them obviously in probably moderate to heavy currents, but when you get into really hard currents like the double red flags, they're going to probably need some more, and so we're looking at the iRescue boards, much more expensive, but we are looking to put these things on the top of our trucks and drive around with them and have them with us at all times. So those are 2 things for entering the water. The third thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to position some of our equipment on the sand. Currently, we keep everything at the sheriff's office over here at our substation, so anytime that we have a water rescue or we need additional equipment to get in the water, such as our jet skis, or we need maybe a 4-wheeler to get down the beach looking for somebody, we have to come to the substation. So we'd like to position our equipment out on the sand. One of the jet skis we are looking to position out near Wellstail. We've actually got a vendor that's helping us to put it out there. And another location is over in Rosemary Beach. Our struggle is the trailers that we have. These are standard trailers used for the road. When you get on the soft sand, we basically drag the trailer along the sand. It makes it very difficult to back up with the trailer. And it makes it very difficult to launch it into the water. So having some trailers that are fit for the sand would be very helpful for us as well. So I would like for you to take this into consideration. This is all beach safety equipment. We're looking to get, I believe I put in for about 20 life vests. That will give everybody 1 life vest, a few extras. We do want to do some training, so we want some extra CO2 cartridges so we can do some initial training up front. That way they'll know how to deploy with the devices. So anything that would be helpful, we would certainly appreciate.
Captain?
Yes.
In addition to what you have listed here, or what you just mentioned, the iRescue boards, the inshore life vest, rearming kits, you mentioned several other pieces of equipment. Why are you not asking for those as well?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I'll just be honest with you, even our jet skis. Our jet skis are 10 years old. I did put in our budget this year, it was cut. But that's about $12,000 a piece with a trailer and all that. It's a lot of money, and so I'm trying to tiptoe here. I don't want to come in and hit you with a big number, but I am kind of tiptoeing here. But you know, new jet skis would help us.
Why were they cut from y'all's budget, do you think?
Well, I was asking for 2. I could use 3, but I'm asking for 2, and that's almost $26,000. That's a big item.
But they were cut from the budget?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And just to follow up on this question, part of this process will involve a legislative finding by the Board of County Commissioners, and so we didn't want to stray too far from the beach safety, which there is a legislative finding that they've done. Because you start getting into multiple use capable type things, and then we have a responsibility to make sure that we're staying within the guidance of the BCC.
It seems to me that being able to rescue someone who's paying bed tax is a pretty reasonable connection.
Are you saying that because it's a jet ski and it can be used for something else?
He could, but we don't use our jet skis for anything but water rescue. Right.
Well, we have to ask though.
Yes.
We have to ask as to what we can spend bed tax money on. So that's one of the things.
How many rescues have you done yearly?
Sheriff's deputies.
Sheriff's deputies. I would have to get you that number. I don't have that number right offhand.
But it's enough to ask for.
Yes, ma'am. I believe so.
A couple of things. Suzanne, you want to state your name and then ask your question?
Suzanne Harris.
Yes, ma'am.
Are all y'all lifeguards certified?
No, ma'am.
Are any of you lifeguard certified?
We may have one who has been a lifeguard before, but we do not train them to be lifeguards, and we do not certify them to be lifeguards.
So, and I'm not against you having it, believe me.
Yeah.
But I know that if our beach attendant goes out to get somebody and does anything wrong, they get sued for not having the certification to go get somebody. So I take it that it's all right for y'all to go and attempt to get them, and you just can all of yours swim? Have they passed any kind of swimming
Yeah,
test?
let me give you an example.
Can every one of them
Yes.
pass a swimming
Yes, ma'am.
test?
Yes, ma'am. But let me give you an example. We're not firefighters, but from time to time, deputies run into houses and pull people out. It's what we do. This is not just a job. This is a way of life for us, and this is what we do. I can't imagine how a deputy would feel standing there on the beach going, you know.
I don't want them to stand on the beach.
We don't
I just
either.
want to be sure the deputy himself can swim.
Yes, ma'am.
Because there are a lot of adults that
Yes,
do
ma'am.
not swim.
But we need the equipment to help them to get out there, and that's what we need.
Is there some reason that you're not training these guys to be?
It is a unique skill. It is a very unique skill. Like I said, it's nothing like being a lifeguard at the YMCA. That is a totally different.
Well, I'm not saying you don't need the equipment, I'm just saying, I mean, it seemed, whether you got equipment or not, it would seem to me that,
It is a very unique skill.
well,
It's not something.
you're
it's-
sending them out there in the water.
Well, no, sir, and I'll be honest with you, we do not require a deputy to go in the water. There is nothing in policy says that you are required to do a water rescue, all right? It's just like we don't require them to go into burning buildings, but it's what we do. And so if we are going to do that, and that's something that we're going to take on, then we need to have the equipment in order to do that.
And I'll say that many of these fine gentlemen who have the beach responsibilities are divers and surfers and spend their life around the water.
And I'm not even saying, I could sit here and say, if it was double red flag and it was storm coming and somebody was out there, I would almost probably tell a deputy, if it's too dangerous, it's too dangerous. It just is. It's not what we're trained or really equipped to do.
Captain, I think for the board members made some valid, have some valid questions. I want to point out, though, if you look at the contract for the lifeguards, we only have 9 locations that we have
28 miles of coastline.
of lifeguard stations, and we've got 28 miles of beach. And so for them to have something in between, and I know I see the trucks all the time. You can count on seeing a deputy out there on the beach. So I think it would behoove us for the security and the safety feeling for the public to see that even more so, and give us some positive.
One of our things, even within our policy, is if we're going to a water rescue, if we pass a lifeguard station, we're required, we pick up that lifeguard. We pick them up and take them with us if that's what we have to do. So we try to use every available means in order to perform this rescue. It is a dangerous task for these guys to do this, and fortunately we have not lost one. Robert Gray's here in the back, and I asked him to come. Robert's been with us 18 years, 7 years on beach patrol. He was working Black Sunday, and he can tell you what happens when those kind of things happen. I think, how many deaths that day?
We lost one. And the thing is, sorry, Robert Gray. One of the things is, especially with the vest, prime example being me, I had to go out in the water one day, and I had flotation. I had 2 females in the water, and also I was going after a male. I lost my flotation to the 2 females because they had no flotation. I had to go out and get the male. When I got to the male, I blew my vest, and that saved my life. And let me tell you, I'm not a lifeguard certified deputy, you know what I mean? But when we're put in those situations, we're going to enter the water. I just think we need to have all the capabilities and all the equipment that we need to go out there if we need to.
I mean, I totally agree they need that, but that was why I asked how many. Maybe we need more lifeguards. Maybe that's some of the, maybe we need to know how many rescues there are.
You're not going to get it.
I would say too that,
and I'll tell you, the other day I was out driving out on Drayton Beach. You know, Drayton Beach is full. No lifeguard. No lifeguard at Drayton Beach. And that place is full.
I would say that, these guys, I work with Audie and work with Robert Gray and these guys, they do a great job down here. they put the right man down here in Audie. Every time I call, he's on it, he's there, he's doing. I would say, I would make a motion to approve that we get an AG opinion on whatever we need to ask about, and go ahead and allocate the $13,393 or $14,000, whatever, for those things that they've asked for. And then, we could talk about jet skis later, I think, but at least get them this equipment, EDQ, so they can,
This is.
And I'll even make a suggestion with the jet skis.
As well, right.
yeah, this equipment could be.
Well, that's the thing, I'll even make a suggestion with the jet skis. If the TDC wants to buy the jet skis and place them somewhere where we would have access to them, and I don't know if that's a possibility, I'm maybe stepping out, maybe that's a way too, and the TDC can own the jet skis. But again, I don't know if that's a
Well,
possibility.
let me
Our
ask you
district has some jet skis, so
It
I know
does.
some of the communities have bought the jet skis, so I'm not sure where we have, what the distribution is.
Do y'all patrol any of the ocean for, like say you're in a jet ski and you're patrolling for
Boating violations.
lawbreakers or?
We don't do that very often, and that's really kind of a staffing issue.
So these would be mainly for rescue?
Yes, they would be for rescues, yes. We very rarely would go out on a jet ski to patrol. We would use our boat for that. If we're going to patrol, we use our boat. We would not use our jet ski to patrol, so to speak.
Okay. Well, that's my motion.
I'll second it.
Got a motion,
Thank you.
Commissioner Meadows, second from Mark, all in favor, say aye.
Vote.
Question.
I need to make a comment. I understand their vote resolution for the board, and maybe for next meeting, that we maybe vote on this recommendation. I think this board needs to perhaps adopt the legislative findings that the county has set forth in its proposed resolution. So maybe you need to have this motion, have a motion for this board to accept the legislative findings that the county has set forth in their proposed resolution. So we do have to have a legislative finding, I think, for maybe.
Is that on the next agenda? Is there something on the agenda?
No, but the county has the beach safety legislative funding that they did to fund the
Okay.
lifeguards. And so I think that's what he's referring to.
Okay, so-
That's the only legislative funding we have. And so we were going to ask
To go off of that
to
legislative.
go off that.
Okay.
So we need to make a resolution.
Or if you want to do, you go to this motion, I'd also have a second motion that you adopt the legislative findings that the county has set forth in their proposed resolution authorizing it.
I'll make a motion to accept Councilor Atkinson's recommendation.
Just one caveat, they haven't
Adopted.
adopted to incorporate this. What they adopted was the beach safety program that's currently constituted, so I don't want,
So
and
you're
that's
saying,
why.
you're saying we need another resolution?
Resolution, I'm not saying you adopt.
No, there's not.
According to the county attorney, I talked to him yesterday, I'm looking at it here,
For,
for the expenditure of these funds, and discussing with Richard Davis, there are 5 paragraphs there that are taking forth the legislative findings that they were going to perhaps adopt.
news to me, he didn't send it to me, so I'll get with Mark Davis and we'll discuss that.
All right, so right now, we have a motion to, so we've accepted, and all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries, and then we have a second motion.
In their paragraph number 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
My motion would be that we send our recommendation to purchase these to the board, and then we get with the county attorney and determine if we need another legislative finding from the AG, or if we can piggyback the existing legislative finding that is in that resolution. But
I think you need a legislative finding from both boards if we do what we did. We might have discussed with Mr. Davis yesterday, and that was both of our opinions, is that this board would adopt their recommendation, that you will set forth additional.
well, we don't have the recommendation. I don't have it. I haven't seen it. Nobody has seen
They
it.
can't adopt
So
it.
that's the issue. Is nobody's seen it.
All right, at this point, we don't need another motion to approve the resolution.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question though? Captain Ross, let me understand what you're saying, that you're saying that the sheriff's department did not allocate funds to this particular project, but there's no issue if the TDC were to do it. Is
No,
that, am I
sir,
correct?
yeah, there would be no issue for the applicant.
And just parenthetically, something else that we might want to look into, I know from talking with the paramedics at the hospital that, and I believe I'm correct in saying this, they are not allowed to go into the water. But as with you gentlemen and ladies,
Well, yeah,
the sheriff's department, they do.
Yes.
Just because they're not going to let somebody
Let
drown.
me make sure I'm clear. This would in no way require a deputy to still go in the water. If a deputy did not go in the water on a water rescue, we would not discipline that deputy. This is just what they do. That's what they feel like they need to do. So please don't take this as now there is some sort of policy or requirement that you are now to enter the water and this and that. This is only to provide the ability and the equipment for them to do that. And second thing too is we would maintain this afterwards. So if we needed an additional life vest, or we needed any additional CO2 cartridges, or if we had to replace a board, we would take on that responsibility.
You stated you only have 2 locations along the 28 miles.
Yes, sir.
Do you need more volunteer locations? Or-
Yeah, I mean, well, we gotta have more jet skis. We only have 2 jet skis.
For some of this equipment to be stored or whatever, to
You talking about-
be utilized.
You talking about like the jet skis?
I'm talking about any equipment to help you assist anyone in need.
Yes, sir. I mean, we would take any location to be able to drop equipment off, even if it was to put board somewhere, or, I mean, we're already gonna try and put them on the trucks if that's possible, but yeah, if we could put the board somewhere, if that's what we had to do, we'd want that too. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Ally.
that's all for.
No, I want to ask you though, I think in going forward with this, we ought to at least check with the fire district as well, make sure that we're not crossing paths with anything they're doing.
Yeah, because they have jet ski, listen to this debate, they have a bunch of jet skis already, and they have them distributed throughout the county. I know there's one in Rosemary that they store back there, and so before we go buy a bunch of, pony up or sign up to buy a bunch of jet skis, let's find out what we have first.
Yes.
And I would think that the sheriff would want to protect his staff, and the $13,000 is not that big a deal in the budget, so, but we will, we certainly want y'all to have it, but I certainly would think that the sheriff would want to have it as well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ask for more.
He does.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
we
Audie.
contribute to the fire department. We contribute boards and vests and all for the fire department. Does the TDC give money to the fire
We
department?
pay for the program.
Pay for the
We
program, not
pay
for
for the
the
program.
That's-
We don't manage it at that level on what exactly it is.
But you pay for it.
We
I
pay
mean,
for-
that's
we
under
pay
the
for the
contract.
program. Yes, ma'am.
There's Nick. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chairman, council members, next. Okay, next item of business, request recommendation to the BCC on the South Walton Reef Association's request for up to $150,000 to fund the deployment of a reef structure within a permitted Great Beach Snorkel Reef site. Andy Alexander is here to give us a short presentation. We'll take some questions and answers after that.
I'd like to say I sit on the board of SWARA, so I'll recuse myself from any voting.
Okay. Make note, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking the time to allow me to appear before you. I do appreciate it. My name is Andy McAlexander, and I am the president of the South Walton Artificial Reef Association. We are a fully recognized 501c3 not-for-profit that we started about 2.5 years ago, and just real briefly, I came up with this idea after going to a couple of Restore Act meetings, and Walton County at that time, and still is for another week, the last coastal county in the state of Florida to have an artificial reef plan and action in place. So throughout 2013, we raised, well, I don't know how to progress past this.
John, I have to do it for you if you want.
There you go. Just go a little bit. So throughout 2013, we started out raising funds to permit the plan that we had created. And here's a good chart of what we came up with, and that was to create 4 snorkel reefs at Miramar Beach, that makes public access, the Topsail Hill State Park, the Great Beach State Park, and the Inlet Beach public access. We then looked into 9 nearshore fish dive reefs in these locations equally dispersed throughout the county off major public accesses. We also, in those funds that we raised, just over $100,000, 115, 20, I can't remember exactly. Was for a 10-year artificial reef plan, the county artificial reef plan, and for that large area reef site that you see down there at the bottom. Since we began that in late December of 2013, we have received all 13 of the nearshore reef permits, the 4 snorkel reefs as well as the 9 fish dive reefs. We've completed the 10-year artificial reef plan with comment back on the FWC that it is one of the most comprehensive in the state, and we're excited about it. So are we. We had a public workshop going through that process, and it now goes before the BCC, I believe, next Tuesday for adoption. So the last thing is the Mars, and as you all just received the final $5,014 invoice from us from the $60,000 that you allocated us in 2013, we finally opened that can of worms and have invoiced for the funds for Taylor to assist us in the securing of that permit. So I think we've been very good stewards of the money that have been dedicated to us, and that brings us to where we're going with the deployment of the NERDA funds that we have anticipated for months in the past, and now it's looking months in the future before those monies allocated to Walton County come to us, and the process then begins for deployment. That's about $1.5 million that's coming to us, which, when it does, will fund about 16% of the nearshore plan of SWARA. And so we were very excited for we got the permits 3 or 4 or 5 months ago, and we were very excited to see deployment occur in 2015. And with the delays of the NERDA fundings, that's going to push any deployment to the end of the year at earliest. We tried or thought about, let's go and raise the money in a different direction. So we made a grant request to the St. Joe Foundation to assist us with the funding of a snorkel reef, and they said, sure, here's a $25,000 challenge grant, and we'd like to see the money go to the Great Beach Snorkel Reef. So a few days later, Jason Comer from the Alice Foundation called me and said, are we going to get stuff in the water this summer? And I said, yes, if we had money. And yeah, so we just received a challenge grant from the St. Joe Foundation for $25,000. He immediately said, we'll match it. Can we get it? Can we get something in the water with that? So I called the engineering company, or the deployment company over in Alabama that creates these structures. If we can progress to the next slides.
That's all.
Oh, there we go. There's not another one? Well, anyway. And so there are 58 of these towers, and if you see the towers in there, they're about 5-foot diameter concrete and limestone plates bolted to a pylon that's jetted deep into the water. And you can see the progression of growth on that. That's the first few weeks. You can see the fish. Right after that, resident turtles and other aquatic life show up. And then you can see how it encrusts out in about 2 years of growth. So with this reef, this is about a $200,000 total deployment for this site. So with the money we have, we may just get to here, we may get these 9 in up here, and then on the south side of the barn, we may get 9 or 5 to 10 more, however much we can pay for. And when I was here, I presented to the Destination Improvement Committee was, we're scheduled to deploy these reefs on July 1st. And that is the peak of the season. We're going to get the most exposure. Our goal is to raise awareness to marine resources and to find the balance. In the package that I included with your several investment studies, the most recent one by the Fish and Wildlife Commission puts the net ROI at 218x for Walton County specifically.
For every dollar.
For every dollar spent
I know
annually.
it's huge nationwide, and Florida's the #1 state fishing.
Correct, and due to the ADR of Walton County, that number is significantly higher than it would be for Okaloosa and the Bay. So if you look at this being a $200,000 reef with a $218 ROI, even if that number is inflated, cut it in half. It's still potentially $20 million in additional annual revenue to all businesses in Walton County. So the ecological return is clear. Providing habitat for sea turtles is probably without question one of the most hot-button issues. If you Google search ecotourism or eco-travel, I did last night, I think it was returned 208 million hits. I don't think there's a question that ecotourism is one of the leading genres of tourism out there today.
So driving these pylons in the ground, because of course, not just for storms, but with highway in action, protects them from being relocated or shifted or destroyed.
Correct, that the fiberglass is strong enough. The circular design of them doesn't create an abatement situation where you
Basically, the ocean floor, by the way, this is, I effing love this. This is amazing because, because basically the ocean floor is like a desert. And if you designate these locations, whether they be boats or artificial, you're creating a habitat like an oasis in the water. What's fascinating about this, I didn't know this was coming up here, but you now have access for people without boats to get out to and see the sea life, to dive, snorkel, with only beach access. You don't have to have a $40,000 boat, of which you have to come through Destin Pass or Panel City Pass.
or bridges. You can launch on bridge.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking.
Right. But true, and that was the impetus for the idea of the Reef Association to begin with, was to create a network of artificial reefs that are shore accessible because we don't have a pass. There's only a few counties in the state that don't have a pass, and we're unfortunately one of them. This, in my opinion, compensates for that. But all of that stuff is monetary. I mean, you can put a value, you can ask a question, why'd you come here? You can judge how many snorkels were sold, figure out the new businesses that are created. You can monetize that. What you can't monetize is the education. And tomorrow we've got the 7th graders from Seaside going down to the beach, and we're going to do the new baseline study, the bottom stuff. And then next year, the 8th graders at the school, same kids, are going to do the chapter 1 course of what the growth on reefs are. And next year's 8th graders, chapter 2, and chapter 3 and 4. You can't monetize that. So, the return's incredible.
I make a motion, we recommend it.
You got any questions first?
Yes, a lot of questions. And first of all, let me say I agree with Gary that this is a great idea, and I commend you for the efforts you put into it. However, what you're suggesting to me has a lot of pitfalls to it. I think we need to air those out, and you and I have talked about them. Number one, and this has nothing to do with money. Number one is, how many, let me ask you, make sure I have my facts right. With the $50,000 you have right now, how many of these reefs can you put in the ground, or put in the water?
15 to 18 of the 16 towers.
Okay, so 15, 16 of the towers, okay. Any engineer or project manager would tell you that you don't go into full production or you don't market a product without test marketing it. And I think while conceptually this has been marketed or put in other areas, it hasn't been put in here. And I think from a project management point of view, it would make all the sense in the world to put in a small number of these, of the 58, maybe put in 15, and step back and look at it for 6 months to see if it really works. There are all kinds of questions you can't even anticipate. The effect on parking, for example. We could find that if you go down to Pompano Joe's right now, where you're proposing to put in one of the reefs, you could get down there, you probably couldn't find a parking space. So when you say you can't monetize it, suppose you had 25 or 50 more cars trying to get into that parking lot. Now we have the law of unintended consequences. All of a sudden we're saying, whoa, wait a second, we created a monster here. Or suppose, and again, you can't even anticipate, none of you can anticipate what could happen. And you only know that by testing it for a while. For example, you may put them in and find out, gee, they're too close to shore, or they're too far out, they're too close together, or the fish, whatever. You don't know what you don't know until you try it. And so I think, aside from the money, it makes a lot of sense to just say, let's put in some of these, and maybe we'll prevent ourselves from screwing up the others. Maybe we'll find out that, gee, they need to be another 50 yards offshore, or they need to be closer, or they need to be a half mile to the left or the right. Any of these kinds of issues. Any scientist, any engineer is going to tell you, don't do the whole thing at once. Do it in small pieces. The second issue I have with this is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, no, we talked about this the other day on the phone. you're telling me, if I understand you correctly, that NERDA is going to give you this money. They promised to give you the money. It's just a question of not giving to you now. You said third or fourth quarter, maybe. And we all know how the molasses wall works. You know, they say third quarter, it's second quarter of next year. I totally understand that, I get it. But what you're asking the TDC is to write a check for up to $150,000 because you don't want to wait till NERDA comes through with their money. And I have a problem saying that. You know, and I told you this the other day, if NERDA wasn't going to come through, I think I'd be more inclined to say, yeah, let's give you the money. But since NERDA is going to come through, then why don't we just wait till they come through? That accomplishes both of the concerns that I have. One is you put the 15 in now, you see how they work, you see how many people line up. You know, it could be a huge dud. I don't think it will be, but we could find out that, you know, nobody really cares. Until we get 15 in there, we haven't employed them all. Or we find out that half of Alabama is down here all of a sudden, and we've created a monster. Who knows? But the point is, you don't guess at those things. You try them out, you see, you do it one step at a time. So aside from the money, I'm saying that I think you really ought to do what you can do right now. Take the $50,000, put the 15 in, and let's step back. Shall we miss a season? It's not the end of the world. Next year, the word will get out, and we'll be able to manage the whole process better. But to do it right away, and to run the risk of, whoops, you know, we didn't think about X or Y or Z, and now you can't untry that egg. So those are my two concerns.
Okay, may I address them?
Sure.
The location and the design of them is based on numerous other counties in the state that have used them. I've personally snorkeled the one over in Navarre. We did that on the first Monday of October last year when we shot that video that was played a little earlier. In the 3 or 4 hours that we were there were probably 50 people snorkeling the reef. And I doubt there's a lot of tourists here on the first day of October on Monday. So the design and how much to put in and how to do it has been well vetted, both by the Fish and Wildlife Commission as well as the Corps of Engineers and the DEP. It's all the way it's been done other places, and it's been tremendously successful.
These have been developed and researched over time. You start off with reef balls.
Correct. It's not first generation. The
Can you speak to
money,
Bill Horn's involvement?
Bill Horn recently joined the board of SPAR. He's the retired director of the Artificial Reef Program for the Fish and Wildlife Commission. 30 years experience. He's the was their number one guy, and he retired and sought us out. He lives in Seagrove now, has since '58. The NERDA funds, yes, I agree. If I had them today, I wouldn't be standing here. They promised them months and months ago, and now we're looking months and months out. So there is truly no guarantee on when that is going to come. A deployment in the middle of the dead of winter is not going to have the same impact as on tourism or on anything as it would in the middle of the summer when the people are here. And as far as, and I know this is not what you intended, or I hope, it's not giving me the money. I'm a volunteer.
No,
I've never even paid a check. So this is a total volunteer organization from the board's perspective. And we look at this as if we've spent 2.5 years and a good treasure of money getting us to this point. Just sitting on our thumbs for another year is not, I think, prudent for.
Nobody's suggesting you sit on your thumbs, and I didn't mean to imply that you were getting the money. Clearly, it's SWAR, but it's quite the opposite from what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting you do the 15. Do them as soon as you can. You have the money to do those. But even though it's tested somewhere else, there's that unknown. You can never guarantee it's going to be exactly the same right here. And I would say, and I think you would agree with me, Walton County, particularly in some dense areas here, is not Navarre. This is far more concentrated in terms of population, in terms of traffic, in terms of parking and so forth than the folks in Navarre have. So it's not exactly the same, which again is to my point that if we look at what we have here and not just say, well, it worked there, it should work here. Nobody does that. It's just not a very scientific approach to doing things.
Real quick, let me ask a couple questions. For a better understanding, the county has ownership of this because we are funding the permits.
The permits are drawn in the name of Walton County, and any structure that's deployed is immediately state property with state water.
Right.
So it's not my reef,
Where does SWORA come in then? Are you the management group for
We do
this?
the annual maintenance and monitoring of the reef to make sure that it's in compliance. We do the data collection after deployment to verify that each structure is on the GPS pin that fits the permit. We handle all of the administrative stuff for it.
And this will be ongoing for how many years, years and years and years?
As long as I'm here, it
A long
was.
time, okay. Who's gonna fund that afterwards?
We have funds that are coming in annually. There's $60,000 to $120,000 annual grants available by the FWC every year for county reef programs. We've applied, we didn't make it last year because we didn't have any permits, but we've applied this year for one of the fish haven sites and or another great site. I can't remember which one, but there's annual grants that are set aside specifically for research, maintenance, and monitoring.
So everybody understands, I'm trying to get everybody on the same page. We, county and state, basically are funding or owning these particular reefs. You're gonna maintain them or research them.
Correct, and if we skip a year because we didn't have the funding, or skip 2 or 3 years we didn't have the funding, it's not, we don't put ourselves in any jeopardy or peril in the eyes of the state.
And to that end, if I may jump in, without SWORA, we would not have the permits in place and we would not have received the grant money.
Because
Bottom
the
line.
county didn't have
And
a
this
staff.
board unanimously approved, the first time this was brought to the board unanimously approved $400,000 for just the permits to get this project going. And the BCC, of course, we sent it, but
That was a grander scope. That included a great many oyster reefs in the bay that we had to parse that out to get something off the ground.
That was a bigger, yeah. One more. Okay, go ahead, Susan.
I probably don't have this right, so I need to ask you. Did I hear you say the NERDA money you wouldn't get till this coming January?
It would be potentially allocated in, or as early as September, October, but there's
Right.
about a 3-month
But
process. that
for
we
sure
go
by
through.
January, you'll have the money in your hand for.
No, ma'am. No, that's the next. They said it was going to be earlier this year when the money would be transferred to the counties. Then they said to May. Now they've said September, October. And Bill Horn he says he can't guarantee that. And Melinda's here to confirm there has been zero communication between FWC and county liaisons. So they could push it again for all we know.
All I'm asking is, if you think this September, you could get money, or October, or November, or December, or January, is it we just don't want to wait till January? Because if you got the money in January, you could still put them in for tourist season next year. February, you would have March, April, May, and before tourist season hit, they would hit. I just don't want the TDC bank account to become an interest-free bank when you can get it free. If you were standing up here telling me that NERDA said absolutely no, y'all weren't getting a dime, I'd be screaming they need to give you the money. But it's sort of like a child that you say you're going to get your new car in September, and he goes, no, I want it today. But grandmother will pay for it free in September, October. And if you get it today, mother has to pay for it. And since grandmother is buying it for you, here's the date you're going to get it. So I'm just saying, when we have availability for free money, and we have so many people wanting TDC money, if it's available 4 months from now free, and we give it to you today, and the NERDA money comes in September, I think we're going to wonder, everybody's going to wonder why we didn't just wait.
Well, A, there's no guarantees on when it's going to come. And B, even if we had it today, it's only 16% deployment of the entire reef project.
Yeah, can I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you know, the government agencies with the state, all that money that's floating around out there, they can hold up projects as long as they want. Let's not be the agency that holds up a very good public-private partnership. This is the best presentation and documentation that I've seen.
Oh, I'm
as long
for
as
the
I've
reefs.
been
I think the reefs are wonderful. I just misunderstood. I wanted to know, I thought he said he would definitely get the money in January.
We have
I thought
we have no idea what NERDA and SCORE, any of those guys doing. They're all playing with the money like the legislature's playing with it. So I don't want to be the agency that holds up a good thing. I think this adds another dimension to the visitor's experience. And I would make the motion, yeah, and the locals. I'd make the motion that we go ahead and approve
$150,000 now, get this on the road, get it going. There's never as good as time as now. We have no idea what's gonna happen in the future.
Will that put them all in, Cindy, 150?
Yep.
It'll put everything in?
It'll put this reef in totality, the one off the center, dead center of the state. The dead center of the state here at Great Beach State Park. And that's off the state park that is so excited about getting $6 an extra car to come through that gate that Matt Allen has just elated. But that puts all 60 towers in that.
Oh, it doesn't put them all in?
No, man, this one reef is about $200,000.
Oh, wow, that's, okay.
All right, hang on. Okay, we got a motion, and I do have another question. We're gonna have a second.
I'll second.
Kurt seconded. My question is, all right, we go ahead and give you this, give the whatever organization the $150,000. Now, do you refund that back to us once you receive the NERD funds?
You can't get NERD funds refunded. What we would do with the NERD funds at that point, or what the plan is that President and Ms. Melinda can attest to this, is if the NERD funds come in, the goal would be to do the snorkel reefs, because the annual FWC grants are handcuffed against that. They can only be for size, and then a pro rata distribution in all the other reef sites that the county has. So we wouldn't favor Miramar over Rosemary or Seagrove over Blue Mountain. They would all get a pro rata distribution whenever that money does come. If we put in, if I put in the $50,000, then when we distribute the NERD money, we got 1.55. If we do all 200, then we just put in 1.7. It's all compounding, and it's gonna be 10 years before we finish building these reef sites.
I call the question.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Aye. 2 opposed. Fort Miller, 2 Norris. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Got 2 of them, got hands and hands here.
My name is Pam Warwood. I'm the project director for Riverway South, Apalachicola, Choctawhatchee. I appreciate you allowing me to take a few minutes to update you on what we've been doing this year. South Walton TDC is one of our newest partners. They joined us in 2015, and so we wanted to give you a little bit of an update of what we're doing and talk to you a little bit about what we'll be doing next year. Our mission is to encourage sustainable economic development in the communities along the Apalachicola and Choctawhatchee River basins. We do that through promotion of rural tourism, nature and heritage-based tourism, and for us that is sustainable economic development throughout our region. We're working to become the premier river-based tourism group in the U.S. There's not another one just like us. This is our program boundary. It just shows you a little picture. There's 9 counties in the region. Right now we have 7 of those counties who are able to financially contribute to our partnership. And again, are so pleased to have Walton County as part of that, and Jim and Melinda both represent your county on our board, and they've been great additions. We take a regional approach to tourism because tourists don't recognize political boundaries, they don't see county lines, and so we work together to promote tourism throughout the region and to promote Riverway South as a regional destination. And mainly what we want to do is not only bring more visitors to the region, but also, once they get here, give them plenty of things to do to extend their stay. So our strategy is to combine our resources among all of these counties and several of our partners and leverage it with our grant funding that we get from the Department of Economic Opportunity, as well as Visit Florida and others. Since 2010, when the Riverway South Florida group began, we've leveraged contributions and grant funding of over $450,000. That's listening to your budget, just a little drop in your bucket, but it's a good amount for such a small organization like ours. In 2015, we're really proud that we have been able to match every dollar of the local funding that we've received from our county partners with more than $6 from other grant funding sources and in-kind services and that sort of thing. So in addition to the value of the materials and the things that we develop throughout the year, we're able to match 6 to 1 what you put in. That's just a very quick snapshot of our budget. We spend more than half of our budget on promotion and marketing, and then we have the other half of our work plan and mission is really to educate the tourism development professionals around the region on current trends and best practices in rural tourism. So in 2015, these were just some of the things that we were able to accomplish or are still working on accomplishments. We have completely redesigned our website. It is not quite launched yet. It will be finished at the end of this month, and then we will be launching in July. We are working on a package of materials that we're calling our Explore Our Florida campaign. We've developed posters, which you see in the frame there on the tripod, that go along with some game cards that are in your package. Each of you got one of these folders that has just some examples of some of the things that we've done. But that'll be in visitor centers and other places that visitors interact with people throughout the region to just give you a picture of the things and the incredible resources that we have throughout Riverway South. In addition to that, and probably our main marketing materials for this year, we have developed 15 self-guided driving tours that encourage people to get off of I-10 and explore our Florida. So in your packages, you have the final version, or the final PDF version, of two of those 15 tours, and they are the Walton County portions. So what we've done is we've put together a package that gets people off 10 on a spur that comes here and mainly focuses on Choctawhatchee River and the Choctawhatchee Bay and some of your rural tourism assets outside of your beaches. You have a wonderful marketing and media company that is doing a great job to promote your beaches. We're here to show people all those other incredible things that you have here to offer. Those are going to be going to print actually this month. So the PDF version we have will end up looking like this. It will be a little booklet, saddle stitch, so we'll have about 1,000 copies of these to start with, and we'll also have them as an ebook on our website so that people will be able to take these, and it gives them complete driving directions and work the stop places and some of the key things to do and see around the region. We've also developed some wrap cards that are intended to drive people to our website that will hopefully drive into these tours and itineraries to get them off I-10. And we're working on some new display materials that we'll be able to use for our campaign launch, which we'll be doing at the end of July. We are going to be launching at the I-10, Pensacola I-10 Visit Florida Welcome Center, and also the 231 Welcome Center, bookending weekends during the last week of July. And again, encouraging people to get off I-10 and explore our region. On the education and development side of our work plan, we have just recently partnered with Goodwill Industries to provide some hospitality training throughout the region. We did 3 workshops this year. We hope to expand that somewhat next year. If you don't know, Goodwill has really a comprehensive program of national certification for lodging, it's from the American Hotel and Lodging Association, And part of that is a guest service training. So they pulled out their part of the guest service training for that. We put together a Riverway Ambassador program to teach people about the region and where they could send visitors and held those workshops. We're also working on a rural tourism workshop that will be focused on tourism, business retention and expansion, specifically for outfitters and guides, maybe some more of the nature-based sort of lodging, bed and breakfast, that sort of thing. And our plan right now is to hold it at the E.O. Wilson Biophilia Center, so we're really excited about that opportunity. We've already spoken to them, and they're interested in hosting, and I hope that we'll be able to maybe get people to the Choctaw Lodge and really explore the area. We offer scholarships through our grant funding to our tourism professionals throughout the region to attend, the Governor's Conference on Tourism or other. We have some people going to the Southeast Tourism Society Marketing College that we're sponsoring for that. And then this year we're actually working on our 5-year strategic plan. So that's education and development for the most part for this year. Oops, going too far. Some of the things that we're looking at doing, we're actually just starting to work on our action plan for 2016, but we are going to continue our website enhancements. We really are going to be working on an expanded and integrated social media campaign using, some of the, in fact, the Explore Our Florida campaign. We're going to have a selfie contest to have people, take selfies at these different locations throughout the region. We hope to add a blog on our website and that sort of thing. So our marketing and tourism will expand next year, as will our education and development. We will continue those hospitality training workshops and be working together to find other educational opportunities to provide the scholarships for. These are just some of the contributing partners for 2015. We have our county partners, but we also get support from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. They work closely with us for the maps and the things that we did in our itineraries. West Florida Electric has provided several $1,000s worth of in-kind services for printing and other kind of marketing, press releases, that sort of thing. And then we work closely with the ARPC and Chipola College also in our education and development programs. The largest majority of our funding comes from the Department of Economic Opportunity through the Rural Regional Development Grant Program, and that's been a really good partnership along with Visit Florida. So that's just a quick update of what we've done. You have the packets that I handed out that show you a little example of some of the things that we've done. I put some press releases that were released after we did some fan tours, some media tours a couple of years ago. But in your packet also is a resolution. We're going to be going to your county commission at the end of June and asking them to pass a resolution that designates October as Explore Our Florida Month. So we're going to ask all of the counties in our region to pass this resolution, and then our partners to work on activities during that month to get people excited about the region and work on getting visitors to those shoulder seasons. So for us, what we want from you is just your continued support, and that you'll continue at your partnership level now, which is a $5,000 annual contribution towards our 2016 work plan, and also support our request to the county commission to declare October as Explore Our Florida Month. I also would like to introduce to you Homer Hurt. He's the president of Riverway South. He's here with me, and if you have any questions.
Yeah, this is great. This is great. I'd like to get some of these when you get these put together in the little booklets,
Yes.
I'd like to get some from our office in South Walton, because we have an awful lot of people come through there. And they may not come here, but they may come to my office to complain about the road or something. Yeah, exactly. And I'd love to have some of these in my office.
We will make sure that you get some.
Thank you very much.
May I have a minute?
Well, we'll have limited, hard copies, but they will be downloaded.
State your name, please.
Omar Hurt, H-O-M-E-R, H-I-R-T.
Okay, thank you.
There's a tradition in Jackson County that I only get 3 minutes, and that's travel, that's spread out. I was a period before the agriculture committee for the state senate, and Senator Mucker pointed out that was all I got there. So I did want to thank Pam for this presentation. 5 years has been, sounds like a long time. We built up from just an idea to bring something like this out of Alabama and Georgia that we were a mile apart of. This stands alone now, but I like it. I'm a Dizzy Dean fan. Some of you young people don't know about him, but he said you ain't bragging if you've done it. Well, we've done it on many things with a little money and a lot of enthusiasm. But one or two things we've done. With every member county that we have, we try to get the top tourism person on our board, and we've succeeded. And that's important because in our monthly meetings, we sit down and exchange ideas. The Goodwill Partnership came from an idea of someone that found out about in Washington County. And what we're doing with it, what we did with that, you're running a trial run with that now. You're getting a state certification. Our people got a national certification, but that just happened. So we're very proud that we led the way on that. Last year, we decided to set up in our plan. We had a plan for agritourism. 14% of the farmers and ranchers in Florida have some form of agritourism. It may be a corn maze, it may be a wedding venue. It may be big or little. There's some extra money in the agriculture. So we got a lady coming out of St. Louis, #1 person in that. We set up a one-day workshop. We planned on 40 people, and we ended up with 80. And they stayed all day. And we had people from Pacific and Jacksonville and Pensacola come to learn how to add that extra to it. What can we do over here? We got a magnificent river that's made for that'll help the bird watchers. I'm not a bird watcher. Well, I'll take that back. I do drink wild turkey. But we have things like that. You have an excellent opportunity here to make this worthwhile. I can't tell you how to run your beaches. You're good at it. But we do have people that want to get on about I-10 and come down here to your beaches and your cities and towns. So we're working toward that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Was that
Appreciate
clear,
you.
I know we're limited to 10, but if you have not taken a boat or a tour on the Choctaw, it's one of the few rivers undammed, by the way. It looks like you were in another country, like Costa Rica. It is amazing. And all 4 seasons, well, we only have like 2 seasons here, but it's the diversity is beautiful. It's absolutely mesmerizing. So it's another untapped resource for tourism, and maybe have to slightly go a little bit more north every once in a while.
I think that's a great idea, and I think it's a great program for us to be a part of that. We have a few requests for a little break, so let's take a break for 5 minutes. It's 4 till, so 10 till we leave. Okay. Okay, Mr. Bagby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So from here on out, the staff and our teammates will be on the timer here. So I'm the first one on the timer. This is an update on the Hurricane Storm Damage Reduction Project. I am Brad for this meeting, and hopefully, well, Matt was here. Oh, he's out showing somebody something. We're going to talk about the easements, cost, sand quality, and then see what questions you have. The easements, the cover letter was approved by the Board of County Commissioners. It has been transmitted, a signed copy has been transmitted to AGS down in Tampa. We expect, and the easements have previously been approved, we expect that they will be married up along with the map and be mailed to the 900 plus beachfront property owners by the end of this month. They'll go out and reach 1, then reach 2, reach 3, reach 4, and then reach 5. The easements, as you may recall, there's still 2 of them. I believe they were approved last November. There's the, what we call the 30A easement, because there is no erosion control line, and the Western Walton County easement, which, because there is an erosion control line there. The tracking, they will be mailed back to the county attorney, and then he will inform the court. We'll have an interactive map. So once they come back, that should, on the easements and the cover letter, the Board of County Commissioners voted to have, sign it yes, or sign it no, or if they don't return it, they don't return it. And that there wouldn't be any second mailings at this time. They don't foresee that, but it'd be 6 months. The tracking, once it comes back to the county attorney, he will disseminate that information, which parcel ID to the Corps, the AGS, and to us, and then we will all track it on where we are on yeses, nos, and waiting to be returned. On the cost, there's a lot of confusion. It's easy to see how people can get confused, so I'm going to try to walk you through this logically. First, I should tell you, the initial cost, which was $161 million for the entire project in FY $12, that report was done. Then there was an update in FY $14. That's what's currently out there in the chief's report. The FY $14 said the project cost would be $170 million and $197,000 and the dollars. There will be an FY16 projection that will come out at the end, hopefully by the end of this month, from the Corps cost estimators up in Walla Walla, and they will tell us what the 50-year cost of the project is. And that's important to know. It's the 50-year cost of the project, not the initial cost of the project or 10-year cost. I know there's been some confusion on that. The current cost breakout is 24.9% from the federal share, 16.8% from the state, and 58.3%. So that would mean over 50 years in current FY14 dollars, the cost of the county through the bed tax would be $99 million, $225,000. The local revenue, last year, the 1 penny dedicated to beach nourishment generated over $4 million, $4,441,894. That's how much. So you can see over 50 years, that equates to about $222 million in revenue. And that's if we didn't do any inflation, we didn't add a single unit, we didn't raise a single rate, we just kept it like it is. But we already know we're increasing units. And we already know this year we're 15% ahead of where we were last year. So we anticipate that this number will be even greater than 4 million. But at 4 million, 4.4 million, it would equate to 222 million. So you can see, basically, we could, in current dollars, or in FY14 dollars, cover that cost out of the beach nourishment penny that the TDC is collecting. There is people reference the consultant's report. It's actually not a consultant's report. It's the cost estimators that the Corps have up at Walla Walla. They put out a page. They put out a single-page document. This is it. It's on the website. And what it says is the FY. First they identify the NED and the LPP. Okay, and people get, what is that? Well, the NED was the National Economic Design. And what that was all the critically eroded beaches and all those that had structures that could be in peril. Okay, oops, kind of stuff. No, I didn't make it.
Next.
So much. That concludes my presentation. Okay, yeah, the NED, what the Board of County Commissioners approved was the LPP. The LPP is the Local Preferred Plan. The difference between the NED and the LPP is 3.6 miles of beach. That's what it comes out to. That 3.6 miles included places like Rosemary Beach, Alice Beach, Watercolor, where they were not originally included in the NED model because they didn't have any structures. They built behind the CCCL. And I remember when I was at Rosemary, we complained that we wanted to be included in the project. Just because we built right didn't mean we should get punished. So if you built behind the CCCL, you shouldn't be denied sand just because the people 50 years before us in Inlet Beach built on the other side of the CCCL. So the Board of County Commissioners approved that request, and they adopted the LPP, the Local Preferred Plan. And so the cost differential you see in there between the NED, both at the FY 2014 price and at the fully funded amount, is the 3.6 miles of additional nourishment or reduction that the county has asked for. Then there's a difference because of the cost estimate, and like I said, they'll do this again hopefully by the end of the month. You'll see the fully funded amount for the NED is $209,767,000. You'll see the fully funded amount for the LPP is $239,469,000. And that's those who are opposed to the project will tell you, of course, that highest number, but what that incorporates is inflation and other cost estimating requirements that the Corps has. So it's not just in FY14 numbers. And it doesn't matter, if we want to do the project in FY14 dollars or when the new estimate comes out, FY16 dollars, that's fine. If we want to talk about it in terms of the fully funded model, that's fine. But then we have to go back and apply the fully funded model metrics to our revenue stream. And what you'll see is we still have more money than the fully funded model based on the cost reduction. So that's the, and then that is where the $239 million number came from. It's from the fully funded model of the LPP. Okay, but
for 50 years
for
out.
50 years out. So that's what that is.
That makes sense now.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sand quality, there's a couple of things we're doing on the sand quality. The Board of County Commissioners said that Dr. Lesman, could look at whatever we have, and we find out that we really don't have a lot because it was done over 10 years ago, and it was reviewed by Dr. Greg Stone, who, in conversation with Dr. Lesman, trained Dr. Stone. Dr. Stone was at LSU. He was the independent analyst that looked at the sand core samples that were taken 10 to 12 years ago. So it wasn't DEP looking at them, it wasn't Taylor Engineering, it wasn't the Corps, it was Dr. Stone at LSU. Well, he's since passed, unfortunately, and we're trying to figure out who has the core samples. And we can't figure out who has the core samples.
And tell us what a core sample is.
Core sample is what they did about 10, 12 years ago in Battle. They went out and they did 80 driver core samples. Okay, they did punch 80 holes in the Gulf, the floor of the Gulf. And they south of Walton County and on the eastern edge of Okaloosa County. They did this and then they said, okay, where's the best sand out of these 80 samples? So then they narrowed it down and they went back out and they did 51 additional samples in the area that they thought where the best sand existed. And they did, so for a total 56 samples, because 5 of them were in BA4, which is the borrowed area that we're using. So they go down to 15 feet, which is about how deep we would go with the dredge on the surface. And then they bring them up and they measure the wet muscle reading at 3 foot intervals, basically. There may have been a couple that measured it intervals. Yeah. But, and so then they go, well, this is 6'2", and that's 7'2", and that's 7'1", and that's 8'1", and whatever the muscle reading is, Dr. Stone just recorded on those vibrocore readings. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, is the white sand, the dry white sand, how is that different than the wet sand of the color?
Well, and there's a little bit of controversy, and that came up, I think, in your questions to Dr. Leatherman, because I don't think he quite understood the geology underneath our sand on our beach based on your questions. But what they do is wet sand, everybody knows wet sand's darker, but wet sand is what comes out with the vibrocore, so that's what they measure the muscle reading.
Okay.
We have asked, as part of going back, we've asked, and Matt has provided, the wet muscle readings from the previous project on the western end of the county, and the wet muscle readings of the sand that was put on in Destin. And we're trying to get those pulled out, and we'll go do a comparison, and we'll just put the comparison on the website. And whatever the numbers are, the numbers are. The other thing that we've done is we've asked, as soon as we bring Taylor Engineering on board, for them to get estimates for the Board of County Commissioners to go back out and punch 10 or 15 more holes in borrow area 4, particularly borrow area 4C, where the sand is proposed to come from. And then we can pull those up, since we don't have those vibrocore samples from 10 or 12 years ago, and then we can bring the boat in, and Dr. Leatherman can be standing there, DEP can be standing there, the Corps can be standing there, and Taylor Engineering can be standing there, and anybody and their brother who wants to be standing there can stand there and watch them as they analyze the core samples. To the color, to the muscle readings, as Dr. Leatherman accurately pointed out in his presentation to the BCC, you get into areas where there is no oxygen, so there's organic matter in the sand. So when you pull up a sample, everybody knows, A, that wet sand is darker than dry sand. And everybody and their brother knows that.
The pepper-flake look in the sand
Right.
is part of that organic matter that has to bleach out or die
Right.
out.
And so it bleaches out, or it dies out, the organic matter. There may be some discolorants. It's like if you go more than about 18 to 24 inches below the beaches here, you're going to find red, you're going to find red, yellow, brown, gray, every black peat, everything you've ever wanted to see. So that's the Taylor Engineering did a bleaching test. The opponents will tell you accurately that the administrative law judge in the Okaloosa Island hearing, I guess is what it was called, dismissed that or did not consider that to be accurate. The Corps, who had geologists and engineers and coastal engineers, did think it was accurate, so they included it in their application to FDEP for the permit. I'm not a geologist and I'm not a coastal engineer, so I'm trying to stay out of that conversation. But there is some disagreement, but what we're trying to do is to find some way so Dr. Leatherman can actually review sand and not, just the facts that he was presented by others. So the comparisons, I've talked about the wet sand muscle readings, previous wet sand, West Destin, new core samples, and we talked about the 80 core samples and the 51 additional core samples. So that, for some reason, it's only one too far. Any questions on the update on?
I thought you weren't an expert.
I'm not.
Sounded pretty expert to me.
So how can
Very good.
Dr. Leatherman weigh in on our nourishment debate, which was verbatim on Wednesday, May 13th in the Northwest Florida Daily News, if he admits himself that he hasn't even seen the samples? I mean, we all know it's unique sand. It's a silver-based sand. That's why it's white. It crunches. It's like sugar. But I just don't understand how. Granted, he is an expert. He knows a heck of a lot more than I do. But if you haven't seen something, how can you debate it?
not knowing what he did see, because if you go online, if you go on our website or you go on the core, the whole application is online. It's over 1,700 pages. And you can read, and they have the core samples, and they have the muscle readings, and so he could have read those, and he could have said, well, the average, but with, you know, if you and I look at the same piece of sand, you know, and take the muscle chart and try to put it over, we might come up with different readings. So that's why we're trying to get something so he can evaluate, so we can say, you know, what do you think about this?
When we did that, that was like 2004 or 5, when we did it was called Nourishment, that was
Right,
the Hurricane
right.
one. You know, we had the big pipes on the beach, and it was fortunately out of our season, but, you know, the sand did pump up grayish, black specks, but very, very quickly, it was the white, crunchy sand that everybody likes.
Well, and that's, you know, the Corps is on record as saying that is the best source of white sand available out in the Gulf. So, but I understand people want to challenge that. I did want to do one other thing on the cost, but to explain, I talked about the local share cost that the county would pay out of 1% bed tax. The state's share, they're 16.8%. My understanding, and until they pass the budget, this is probably in flux, but my understanding is that going forward, all these projects will be funded out of dock stamps as part of Amendment 1 that passed last year. So that money will be dedicated to fund this program, which is traditionally funded at about $30 million a year. But I said, you know, I don't want everybody to walk out here saying, he said it was going to be funded by dock stamps, but we'll know within the next 30 days if the program is going to be funded by dock stamps. What that means is not a single penny of gas tax, not a single penny of sales tax, not a single penny of any other use tax or anything would be used to fund this. It would all be just like the bed tax is a voluntary tax. If you stay here, you pay it. You know, this is where you're going to stay. If you buy property or whatever, that's when you're going to pay the dock stamps. The federal portion, however, you know, I assume it's made out of income tax. If I think there's 310 million people today, there'll probably be an average over 50 years of 330 million or so. If there's 330 million average over 50 years, what that equates to during that 50-year period is every individual would pay 12 cents for this project. So yes, there's a cost, you know, but it's less than a quarter of a penny per year, about a quarter of a penny per year per person spending. So that's, any questions on hurricane storm damage reduction?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Council. My name is Lauren Wilson, Assembly Communications. Be back after my maternity leave. I'm here to provide an overview of the past 2 months of advertising and media activity. First, start with paid media. We had some great national and regional placements in the past 2 months. The one thing I did want to comment on is that we did an opportunity called Dish Work and Drive. This is a 3-minute segment focusing on culinary tourism in South Walton. It's going to air in 54 markets from Virginia to Texas during the month of June. It's about 2.2 million impressions. So that's an exciting opportunity. We actually used existing footage from last year that only aired in 1 market. So it was a great repurposing of existing assets. We did a Buy Florida Golf Alliance earlier this year, and as part of added value, we had exposure at trade shows throughout the country. We received almost 5,000 leads from golf enthusiasts who are interested in South Walton. So we're offering them an exclusive sweepstakes and an opportunity to sign up for our leisure e-newsletter. And this is pretty much ready to go. We're just waiting for the new website to fully launch. And going to our standard metrics, the spring online co-op launched this in April, and we're really pleased with the click-through rate. It's about industry average. The other thing I wanted to point out on this slide is, for visitor guides, we had over almost 7,500 requests just from sweeps alone. Through the end of April, we've had 38,000 requests for visitor guides on a website. So we are on a very good track to go through our 85,000 that we printed in December. Moving to our brand campaign performance, again, very happy with click-through rate, again, well above industry standards for mobile desktop and pre-roll. And Jennifer, to your point about events and their ROI, we even see really great click-through rates from those banner advertisements. And we also measure what people do after they click on the ad, on all of our ads, and that's called post-click engagement, so what they do on the website after that. And the signature events ads have the highest amount of people looking at the most number of pages and staying on the site longer. So this is, this marketing that we do for the events is a very captive audience. So it's really encouraging that we're adding more to the docket because we're getting really quality visitors to the website from those advertisements. Reserve spending concluded at the end of March, but we never provided a full recap. The campaign ran through from mid-January through the end of March. We had almost 20 million impressions, almost 250,000 clicks. But the goal of the campaign was really to tell the story of South Walton through video, through both our ads, our commercials, and our lifestyle videos. And if you look at the cost per view for each campaign, we really feel like we did that in a cost-effective way. You can really see the results when you look at YouTube. Before we launched the campaign, we only had 221 subscribers. That almost quadrupled in the 3 months that we ran the campaign. And then we're approaching 1 million lifetime views on YouTube of all of our videos. So we feel that that really allows us to tell a narrative and a story about the destination and all the different facets of it. So we're very encouraged by this. And we have a second part of the reserve spending campaign that will launch in mid-July and run through the end of September to drive shoulder season business. Beach safety launched in March, got into full swing in April. Again, click-through rate is very healthy at 0.56%, but you can really see by the total text sent year over year and the active subscribers that we're outpacing last year significantly. And added value, we're about at almost 50% of our total media buy. The big highlight from this month was part of the reserve spending campaign again, but we almost doubled our impressions for Southwest TV Flies Free. This is advertising on Southwest channel when you're watching TV. You get to watch it for free if you watch our TV slots. So we were very happy with that added value. And finally, we had the co-op sales program in May. 89% of the co-op opportunities were sold, so that means we don't open it up for a second sales period. We saw really strong digital sales, and that we think that's related to offering two levels of spending, $750 and $1,500. And if you compare last year for bed tax collector participation and dollars spent, we're pretty much very even for this fiscal year.
Lauren?
Yes.
Real quick, on the total co-op opportunities, 249 plus, is that, could we have more, or is that?
The plus is because visitor guide co-ops are unlimited, so that's why we can't put a dead number on the top of it. So,
I'm just curious, how many more partners, if you will, participated with the digital sales than before?
I would have to go back and look, but I can't get that for you. But if you look, we saw a bit of a shift from like print to digital this year.
Yeah, because I was the advocate of the less expensive, being able to buy in cheaper, and I just wondered how much impact that had on people. Were the people that were paying $1,500 down drop it to $750, or the people that, did you get a bunch more new players?
From memory, I think we sold about 189 co-op efforts versus 249 was offered, and we got 89%, so I have to do a little bit of math. But she's right, it didn't they move, but it didn't grow or shift too much. We'll get you a number on digital in particular.
What we saw a lot was if partners who have participated in the past and only bought maybe one season, this time they bought maybe all 4 seasons at the lower level. So it's a, repurposing, but I can provide a breakdown for you.
Thank you.
Then moving to creative initiatives, the big effort in the past 2 months was shooting the photography for our brand campaign. We shot 2 new ads, and this was to complement our existing campaign. The goal was to really add some more advertisements and photographic depicted the turquoise water and sugar white sand. So what I'm going to show you is not entirely final, but I would say 95% of the things will remain the same. This is what we're calling the bike ad, and as you can see, it's just pretty much painting a perfect landscape for consumers to imagine an ideal vacation in South Walton. And that's what the headline states do as well. Bring a book, but write your own story. So putting it in the hands of the visitors. And then, and I do want to mention, we had the shoot plan, and it was pouring rain, downpouring, awful weather. It was the last week of April, and in New Orleans there was awful flooding. We came back at the end of the week, and it was like this. And that happened last year also when we tried to shoot the brand. So second time's a charm, both years in a row. Second ad, what we call the raft ad, we wanted to get a water perspective looking back on the beach. This is always very appealing to the consumer. This was originally concepted to be just a meetings ad, but we felt it was so strong that we wanted to do a leisure execution as well. The headline or retreat, for those who don't, it does speak to the meeting planners, but it's almost a bit challenging to people who are really successful. It's, and who hopefully have high household incomes to go with that success. But this is the leisure execution. One thing to note is that there's a little fantasy, if you will, in the coastline. If you look very far down to the left, you'll see some high-rise buildings from Sandestin that obviously wouldn't be visible watercolor Beach State Park. We've modified that a little bit. It's to show the full range of accommodations from resorts to high-rises to the Drayton Beach trees. We had some Photoshop fun with that.
I'd like to call that a composite. It sounds very industry savvy.
Did you call it composite?
A composite, yeah.
A composite coastline.
Not real.
This is the meetings version. We have an overlay that shows meeting venues, lifestyle elements, and has an opportunity for co-op. So we're really excited about that, and will be a spread in all of our meetings co-op opportunities. While we were in town, we had the opportunity to shoot some merchandise, some of the new logo towels and cups, and this is now on the website, for the e-commerce section of the website.
Question about merchandise. Do we have plans, or have we ever thought about selling umbrellas with the logo on them? Yeah.
Lots of things on the wish list, and starting with the basics, t-shirts, totes, and towels, but yes, trying to get to the point where we can establish a really nice set of things.
Umbrellas and chairs, maybe, so that.
Talked about the ultimate beach chair at one time as
Yeah.
one of those aspiration items, but you wouldn't maybe have very many of those in inventory. But if you were serious about wanting, the perfect beach chair, I think even in one of Jim's places, you have a completely tricked out beach chair.
Yeah, because everybody else has their labels all over the chairs. I just wondered if chairs and umbrellas would be something that would really pop. I'll be willing to test these. Yeah, me too.
You gonna require the beach vendors to have a South Walton logo on?
I like that.
But you said that. You did.
I had to throw it out there.
Yeah. Remember Jim? Put that in minutes, Jim.
In April, we also shot 2 lifestyle videos. The first one will be complete this week and on YouTube, but we're calling it Made in South Walton. It's a little like what we were talking about earlier with the bazaar at the 38 Avenue. It's all sorts of things that are authentic to the place. So bringing beer, art, products like jewelry and purse maker. So we're really excited about that. It's a really fun video, one of my favorites that we've done so far. And then we also shot at the same time a romance video, which was a huge hole in our content inventory. We really didn't have a lot of romance footage at all, and that's a huge draw for the destination. So we hired a local couple to show them having the perfect Sunbelt getaway. We'll have that finished in June, but we're going to be promoting it heavily in August, September to drive shoulder season. So this weekend, romance getaways.
So you try to stage those at certain times because not a whole lot of romance going on.
No.
No,
that's, yeah. I mean, I think even from the visitor tracking site, you know, the size of the group shrinks significantly on shoulder. So that's why we're holding it. But we'll have it up on the website. People will be, or on YouTube, but people will be able to access it, but we'll put media dollars behind it and stuff. And then again, signature events, we promoted the Wine Festival and Arts Fest, and again, saw great results both from click-through and the post-click engagement.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
You know, all these lifestyle video shoots, I see kind of the same things, but is golf and tennis, I mean, we do have that around here. Is that not included in?
We did a guys getaway where they teed it up and went fishing and barbecued steaks, and so we had a
fishing.
So we're coming to that. Don't forget about us dads.
That's right.
Yeah, and then tennis is in the girls getaway video. So.
All right. Just check. Thank you.
But there's all sorts of different mashups we can do. You know, we could take some of that existing B-roll and couple it with tennis to do like a sports lover video. You know, we're always trying to brainstorm where the holes are in our inventory. Then it's moving to social media and content strategy. Solid growth in our social channels. We really feel like Instagram has come into its own as its own channel this year. We're really happy with those results. YouTube looks like we didn't have a significant amount of growth. This is for April. That's because we're coming off the heels of the reserve spending campaign where we had exponential growth, and then the media dollars pretty much stopped at the end of March. So we didn't have any paid promotion of YouTube during April. So it's still we had 1,000 more views, but now the number is so large, it's a small percentage. Page performance index. Again, we had a great month in March at 30% and dropped to 22% in April. Again, this is because reserve spending shut off and Facebook rewards you for increasing the spends. So, but we're still, tracking well and competition in this area. And finally, I just wanted to point out a couple of our social engagement posts that we do that we never really talk about this, but one thing we do every Sunday is called #SundaySunset. We repost or retweet a user-generated picture of a sunset, and this is a global hashtag, but people look it up, and it's a really great way to engage not only that user and their fan base, but it always performs very well, and people always comment, I wish I was there, so beautiful. Another thing we're doing is we're doing pull quotes from media and putting them in the brand headline font across an inspirational image. It's sort of a way to brag about our media coverage in a pretty way. And we're also repurposing a lot of the footage we're using in lifestyle videos, just taking 5 to 7 second clips, so we can create some movement and some engagement, as you scroll through your newsfeed. So that is all that we had. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Daniels.
Good morning, Philip Dale, Tour Analysis Research. We have reached the 1-year point in our data collection. I'm going to share some of those results, and these studies will be posted so we can keep this presentation fairly brief. The first thing we're going to look at is this is the big data. This is the MAC data, the economic impact of the destination. And this is based on over 3,500 surveys that we've done. We appreciate the help from the farmers, the properties involved, but we also interviewed at over 10 events over the last year. So this information is based upon lots and lots of interviews. And the top number there, 3,223,800 visitors. These are visitors who stay in paid accommodations. They're visitors who stay with friends and relatives and day trippers as well. And they spent nearly $2 billion with us, and the economic impact of that is nearly $3 billion, and over 2.3 million room nights generated, and that equates to almost 20,000 jobs in Walton County. Looking at the economic impact, the $1.9 billion is the direct spend from visitors, and then we have induced and indirect effects, basically the money that churns through the system. You're all familiar with the multiplier effect, and there are two components of that. So you see the total economic impact of $2.8 billion. Here we see the visitors again, 3.2 million, and the average occupancy, and these data are from March of last year through February of this year, and we'll start to do this on an annual calendar basis, I think, in the future. I think that's Jim's interest, and we'll be revolving this to a calendar year. You can look at the room rate ADR over the year of that 12-month period and the RevPAR. So you can see how the visitors are broken down. The majority, about 2/3, stay in paid accommodations, and we have a significant number of VFRs and day trippers. That's the breakdown of the direct spend. Accommodations, restaurant, shopping, all account for a significant percentage. And again, all this information will be on the website. That's the direct spend by visitor type. Those staying in paid accommodations account for the majority of the dollars spent. They stay longer, they spend more. And I'm going to skip through the quarterly reports, spring, summer, fall, winter, because this will be on the website. And then you can see how the visitors are broken down by quarter, with really half of them here in the summer. The spending break by quarter, the room nights by quarter, all mirror the same relationship. So any questions about the economic impact before we move on? We just completed our list. We're reporting on the last of the 4 quarters of visitor tracking, and there are lots of information here, but if you look, for example, at a few of these things, the median age stayed fairly stable except in the winter, where our visitor gets older. The median income peaks in the summer, but stays 115 to 150,000 range. Most of our visitors come from the southeast, regardless of quarter, and about 9 out of 10 of our visitors drive, regardless of quarter. And about 1 out of 5 of our visitors is a first-time visitor, regardless of the quarter. Jumping ahead to the economic impact of the events, we have done 10 events, and we're presenting 2 of those today, the Sandestin Gumbo Festival, which in terms of attendees, over 2,200, and about 40% of those were locals, and about 3 out of 10 stayed in paid accommodations, resulting in 525 room nights generated, and a direct spend of nearly $440,000, and total economic impact of nearly $800,000. So when you're talking about giving money to different events, and I think Commissioner Meadows asked about ROI, and we have this information. Why women choose a smaller event and a much higher percentage of locals, and very few staying in paid accommodations, and so the direct spend and the economic impact were much lower. the Seaside Half Marathon with 5,600 attendees, and that generated 1,263 room nights, and you can see a much higher jump here in direct spending, 1.7 million and over 3 million in economic impact. Then finally, the 38 Wine Festival, over 500 attendees, nearly 100 room nights generated. Half of the attendees were locals. The direct spend was 230,000. Total economic impact over 400,000. And again, there's a lot of numbers here, but all of these are going to be posted, and we're all available to talk to you about them. We did the ADR study. We can just look very briefly at this, but one of the keys here is looking at the occupancy rate. It jumps up, as you all know, in the summer, over 80%, and then it drops at 43.8% in the winter. And the RevPAR and the ADR are along the bottom. We're as high as 304 for RevPAR in the summer, and then all the way down to 76 in the winter. So any questions? A lot of information.
Thank you, Phil. Great job. And short.
Vaguely likes that.
Yeah. Succinct. Not short, succinct.
Succinct.
Yeah.
Like composite saying.
Yeah, composite.
Ms. Jim.
For administration updates, really quick reminder of the FY16 budget. We already went over it, but there's a tentative budget schedule in your books. June, if you could have your comments into me, if you have more time to look at the budget by the middle of June, around the 15th, so I can incorporate any of the changes in and get those to me. And again, we'll be presenting it back to you again on the August meeting after some of our other members have been tweaked. Project status updates. We have a number of projects that have been going on. The strategic planning request for qualifications and the public space design shred are both moving forward. We had a teleconference with the firm selected for strategic planning, and they have submitted a revised proposal that scaled back the complexity of their original plan. So that we look forward to bringing forward to the Board of County Commissioners for approval to get going on that. Public space design shred, we're in contact with the preferred vendor right now to negotiate some of their contract issues. Coastal management, Jim gave you a more extensive update, so I'm going to skip over that one. As I mentioned before earlier, also we have the Maximus for the county indirect cost allocation and the Maximus study for the TDT cost study. Both of those we have received the drafts, as I mentioned. We have a teleconference scheduled for this coming week with the Maximus agent Troy Tangen, and hopefully we will get a final copy before the end of June. We had hoped to have it last week, so and we had hoped that there wouldn't be that many areas of concern, but there were. So my expected date of completion needs to change until July 30th on both of these. TDC Human Resource updates. We have coordinated with County HR for the positions for the sales coordinator, the lead information specialist. Beach operations had a little bit of restructuring. We had our foreman retire, and rather than replace a foreman, Ryan had requested to go to the crew leader form of supervision. So we have the old assistant foreman will now be a crew leader, and we're advertising for a new crew leader, and permanent and seasonal beach maintenance specialist positions are also open. Coordinated temporary services for the visitor center for a short-term period. I think that she's done at the end of this week. She's accepted a full-time offer someplace. And we continue to look for part-time staff in the visitor center to help us out during the peak season. And we are still moving forward. We just finished our first successful payroll dual run with the payroll automation, and we were 75% compliant, so we'll be moving forward to wrap that up and start doing the leave request that way as well. And then the last thing I have to, the last thing that I have to mention is that we were able to collect a little over $3,000 in unanticipated revenue from a postage refund from our previous Coastal Communications visitor guide shipment vendor, and we also got a refund for an overcharge on the copy vendor that we just ended contract with.
Good job. Good job. Thank
Good morning. For the record, Pamela Watkins, Director of Sales and Special Events. I'll start out with a sales update. Back in May, we had a contract with DMI Hotels based out of Chicago. They have sales reps located around the United States, and they meet with meeting planners. And so they also rep South Walton, and we brought 3 of their salespeople to South Walton and toured them through our meeting facilities, our restaurants, our state parks, and activities, so that when they go meet with their meeting planners, that they can put South Walton at the top of their list to promote us for RFPs and meetings. Next week, Jim and Carly and myself will be heading to Orlando for Collaborate Marketplace. Collaborate is focused towards the corporate meeting planners, and it's ran by Tomlinson Media. And I've been to a lot of trade shows to market meetings, and this is probably at the top of the list. There will be 1,000 people there. Half of those are hoteliers and CUBs, and the other half are meeting planners. South Walton will be hosting the first day's breakfast. That gives us stage time. That gives us an opportunity to show our meeting video. We're taking 4 partners with us, Hilton, Sandestin, Watercolor, and Pearl. Those folks will be introduced at that breakfast. We will also be giving away some vacation packages at that breakfast to just meeting planners, because the goal is to get them here to see the destination and to book those meetings. So we're excited about that next week. Just want to mention that the Artist of the Year application is out. That went May 19th and closes on July 21st. So if you know a great artist in South Walton, encourage them to fill out the application that's on the partner site. The Van Ness Butler Hospitality Award will go live on July 9th, and that will run through August 19th. Once we get all those applications in, I'll be sending you those applications with a scorecard like last year, and you will rank those and send those back, and then that person will be recognized at the annual meeting on October 14th. As Jim mentioned earlier, the events activities workshop will be on June 25th, and that we'll take a look at the rubric that we're currently using for that program, and try to tighten that up for FY17 and see what ideas that the group has. Okay, the visitor center update, and I apologize if those numbers aren't up there. We just got those numbers in yesterday. April, we had an increase of 13.2% of visitors coming into the center. That number was 1,559. In May, we had a slight decrease of 4.9. We had 1,768. And then year-to-date, from October to the end of May, we had 13,261 people coming into the center. And that's about on track of where we were last year. Merchandise sales, April, we sold 1,653, which was an increase of 26.6. May, we sold 1,566, an increase of 4.0. And year-to-date, we have sold, and this is from October, we have sold $9,819 worth of branded merchandise. And I think with our new merchandise, with a new logo, that'll be next. We'll show you that, and people really like that new logo, and I like the new garments that we have. The next item is Shopify. It's a new system that we have in the visitor center. for purchasing merchandise. Before, we were only able to take checks and cash. This allows us to take credit cards. And also, when we open our new online store on our website, you'll be able to order any merchandise that we have in the center. You'll be able to order that online. They'll come right through to the ladies, and they'll be able to fill that order and ship it back out. So that will be soon. And a couple of you asked me at the beginning of the meeting about the merchandise. I know this has been a long meeting, but if you can go into the center on your way out and see the ladies and look at the merchandise, and if you'd like to purchase some, it's there for you. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, I do have one other item that is not on the agenda. From time to time, don't count this, Jim.
No, it counts.
Okay. From time to time, Jim, John, Jennifer, Brian, and I, we stand up here and we tell you about awards that the team has won, and we tell you what a great team we have, and we do. We have an excellent team here. They are dedicated, they are talented, and we are very lucky to have them. A few of you know that I recently was out on medical leave for 8 weeks. Jim says it's 12, and sometimes he says it's 16. But it was really 8, okay? And at the beginning of that leave, we had a sales associate who also went out on unanticipated leave. So since the sales department only has 3 people in it, that left Carly McMillan by herself. So not only did Carly do her job and the other sales associate job, and she did my job, and since I oversee the visitor center, that also fell to her. And the visitor center is a 7-day-a-week operation, has 2 full-time ladies, 2 part-time. During that 2 months, I could stand up here and tell you all kinds of projects, but I won't. I want to suffice to say that she did an excellent job. When I returned back to work, everything was in order. Jim, the rest of the directors, told me what a great job she did, and I knew she'd do a great job. But publicly today, I'd like to recognize her and
Did she get like the week off or something?
You heard it here first.
She had 8 weeks off.
Carly can say yes. Thank you, Mayor.
Good morning, yes, thanks, and to echo what Pam said, you know, we come here, we try to give you as fast as we can some relative information, but since the last meeting, it's thousands of hours of effort put in by this team, our agencies, research, y'all, and so we pick these things, which we hope are a little sampling, but you can't say enough about the effort that goes into visit South Walton and Walton County, so appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to hit some random ones. First, which I'll ask Jim to pass that around to the left. Southern Living, who most of you know, is easily one of the most esteemed brands in our consumer family that there's ever been, and they are about to have their 50th anniversary. For this 50th anniversary, they're going to do some things that they have never done in their history to celebrate it and to even include some of the partners and the brands that have been along for the ride. They visited the state of Virginia, the state of Arkansas, and they talked to Nashville / the state of Tennessee and to South Walton, and invited us to be part of the 50th anniversary celebration that they're doing. So we were able to rush that to the BCC last week and have permission to participate as one of their partners. And it's in excess of several $1 million worth of invitation that they've given us for 10 cents or less on the dollar. One component of it will be a custom booklet is going to go into the 50th anniversary, a 16-page booklet about the 50 things that Southern Living loves about South Walton, and that'll reach millions of people. So it was a little bit like Christmas, you know, and your birthday and the anniversary all showing up at once, but we're very, very excited about being able to do that. And again, a very select group of people in the United States even got asked, so to be asked alone was quite an endorsement. So we'll be working on that, and that's February, but they'll be spending months leading up to it and months after it, focusing on that. As we're sitting here today, the website is ramping up. We pushed 25% of organic traffic to the homepage to the new site over the last 10 days, and this week we'll push 100% of organic traffic. Paid traffic is still going to the existing site. Huge punch lists, lots of effort. We're hoping that we can be 100% live within a week or 10 days with even paid. But obviously we're going to be very careful with paid. We're spending millions to deliver certain things. TripAdvisor took about 5 months to wrestle an agreement with them, so we do have a contract with them, and we're working again this week on incorporating TripAdvisor and increasing the number of events and content. But everything that we set out to do, generally, we've had some successes. It's going to continue to be a lot of work, but honestly, by the end of the week, if you're going to the website, you will probably be redirected to the new website as natural traffic. So that's a big milestone after 8 months of effort. Public relations, we had the NBC Golf Channel scheduled here. We had to cancel because of weather, same situation Lauren talked about. We were very lucky, however, when we rescheduled, it was one of the prettiest times that I've seen in 10 years here. So what was shot is amongst some of the most beautiful things ever captured. We're at a production meeting yesterday via phone, and we're looking for August, the first week of the FedEx Cup is when the segment will air. And yes, it's about golf, but really the whole focus was about South Walton's cuisine and eco, and you can see Mike Manganiello, the host, paddling out western Dune Lake at the Water Sound. And so the segment will really focus on, you know, beyond the beach and beyond golf. And so we're excited about that. Wayfaring signage, you may have noticed all around the county. It is basically installed with the new Sunway blue logo. We have one make good that has to happen. Some of the hardware was inadvertently not submersible stainless, which was spec that it can't rust, and so they're going to make good on that. Local company, South Walton Graphics, completed that, and again, it's over 175 surfaces scattered all over the county, so it's been a huge job, but we were really glad to see new messaging and new logo on countywide. Perfect in South Walton, year 2 is launched yesterday. In fact, we're accepting recommendations from people who think that there are worthy folks that should be in categories. So that, once that period concludes, then we'll ramp up to then eventual voting. But it did a great job for the first year. I'm still seeing it in places when I'm out and about in South Walton. We hope we can exponentially grow this. Our intent this year to do something a little more special, which is to announce the winners at the annual meeting. That'll be another way to bring more attention to that and sort of celebrate that a little bit more. Midwest Tourism Writers Association, they are very interested in us sending them a bid to come here for the spring of 2006. So we are working diligently today to try to get a concept to them. As you can see, it's a potential coverage in excess of $2 million if that group comes here and writes, and you're talking about publications like USA Today, Wine Enthusiast. So it would be a relatively big coup to get that amount of attention here. Our added value equivalency the last 2 months for all items is right around $3.5 million. So you can't buy that. You can stimulate it and you can encourage it, but those kind of values are, will continue to be very, very important for this destination. Public relations RFP, we are desperately trying to get that out this week. BCC fully approved the scope. Looks like maybe 4 weeks or 5 weeks that that'll be open for, but obviously the goal is to have new public relations contracts in place in October when our existing one expires. So that hopefully will be, that request for proposal will be made public. This group also serves with the county EOC operations. Emergency support functions 14 and 18 are groups that we support. This team did an exercise up in the north with the new director of the EOC and reviewed all of our internal plans, which include things like formatted press releases and preparations to reach out to bed tax collectors if there's been a storm, to see who's reopened and manage the communication parts of that. If you have folks that are not on our connections list and not on our emergency contact list, all you have to do is designate that you have a general manager, you have a security person, you have a designee, and they can be on the emergency distribution list from the county. We have about 1,000 right now, key individuals that get that messaging. And I think that gets us to the end if there's any questions about marketing.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I do want to recognize one more staff member. We talked about it. Angela Vaughn has graduated from Leadership Walton last week.
Good morning. Brian Gilbert, Beach Operations Update. Construction renovation repair projects. Okay, Visitor Center. Visitor Center CRP project started in late April, finished in late May. We had a punch list walkthrough yesterday. Contractor will be back later this week to take care of small items. Multi-use path projects, so the Great Beach of Western Lake, all the permits are in hand. We're waiting on a submerged land base from the state of Florida. We've recently added some the parking study recommendations for that area to that engineer of record to add to his project. Expect to have that project started sometime in early fall. Highway 98 38 West Connector. That's our area on the west of 38 terminus up to McValley Road. We have applied for a grant from the Florida Roads and Trails, as well as an easement from the FDOT and the state park system. Bike racks, we started last year with a beta test. I have the new localized bike rack approved. Currently putting together a list of where all the bike racks go for Jim's approval. We'll get those under fabrication and installed either mid-July to 1st of August. AdCom parking study recommendation and implementation. This was the parking study that was conducted last year. Out of it, Public Works and Engineering identified 8 focus areas. 7 of those were accepted. TDC was tasked with funding and implementing RFPs for those. One of the projects was included in the Western Lake Bridges project. The other 6 are under our direction. The work state is on Public Works. The engineers, the involved engineers have been identified. Expect to have a meeting late this week or next week to start the review of the existing conditions within the design and permitting RFP process for construction. Construction starting in early fall at the season.
So these will be ready for the next season?
Yes, Beach Clean. In April, we saw a spike in the first of the month, coincided with spring break, averaging about 2,400 bags a week. Second, third, and fourth week, kind of tapered off back to our usual 1,000, 1,200 bags per week. May started off at the 1,200, 1,400 and ramped up as the month went on to our usual 2,400 to 2,800 bags per week. We expect to maintain that through the rest of the year. We'll have spikes at our holidays, July 4th and that. Destination improvement projects. Coastal Blue Lake signs. We started with 1 sign that was well accepted. We identified 4 locations. The theme and content have been improved and designed and finalized. The 4 signs are now sign maker for fabrication. Expect to have those out about 2 weeks. We'll then identify the exact location where they'll go on the bridge or on the post at the location. We'll have those installed probably 1st of July. This is an example of one of the signs. This one will be the Eastern Lake. It is a ecotourism themed sign. NRDA Phase 3, the projects were identified in 2012. We've gone through the process. 6 projects were identified. We had to go ahead and do 2 of them for the 2 boardwalks at our beach accesses. The other ones are improvements to 2 regional beach accesses and a new neighborhood beach access in the Dean Allen area and a canoe kayak launch on the beach property land over in Washington on Eastminster Drive. FDEP is handling the design, permitting, and construction of the project. They identified a project manager, we met with them in April, and we started the design frame process. We expect that to be done 1st of August. RFP will go out, construction will start once again in the off-season in September. Beachside Park, Lakewood subdivision, this is a piece of property the county is considering buying, 2.3 acre parcel. We've been tasked with coming up with 3 different concepts of making that into a beachside park.
When is that gonna come to the BCC, the options?
I met with the engineer of record on Friday. They have a 2-week design scheduled to produce a preliminary design. More than likely it will be on the 6/23 meeting, or possibly the first meeting in July.
I'd say July because it's down here.
Down here, yeah, we get this process in it.
Okay, so that's, okay, good, thanks.
Beach code enforcement. Bid item is we went through a beach ordinance revision process. The revisions were accepted and adopted on May 1st. Enforcement started on May 22nd. The biggest component is we are now dividing the public beaches into what we call vending zones. Typically, these are 50% of the beach. In some of our neighborhood beach accesses, there'll be a couple of sections of vending zones. What this does is it creates an area where the vendors can set their chairs. The general public has access to 100% of the beach. Vendors are required or restricted to set up in this 50% vending area. We have them delineated with markers on the beach. And first weekend was Memorial Day. We had approximately 14 vendor violations. Of those, about half were associated with the new vending revisions. The rest of them were associated with components of the ordinance that are already in place. Our contacts, once again, we saw a little bit of slide. Contacts are a compilation of all the efforts we have with code enforcement. Once again, spike at the 1st of April and eased off towards the end of April. May, same thing. Sorry about the lack of data for the last couple of months. This slide was put together. The preparation for this meeting will not change. That's my update. Is there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Of the 6 locations that you identified from the AFCON study for parking,
Yes, ma'am.
how many parking spaces does that have?
Well, it has approximately 275 parking spaces. Now, of that 275, some of those are already being used. So it is improvements to areas that we're already parking in. And there are some areas where they're adding additional parking that might not be used. So to add, say, is it new parking, I would say about 35% of the
About 100 new spaces, but they're all spread out. But the ones that, there's going to be about 20 or 30 more spaces along 30A right across from Drayton. Public parking.
Is there a map of those or identification of the location?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be glad to send you my statement.
Jim, I got Scoot.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me.
Oh, you may. No, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, I can go forever. Okay, closing up. First, I want to correct something I said. I did receive that legal opinion last Thursday on the legislative finding, but that was for the BCC. So in our discussions between Mark and Clay and I, he had sent it to me, so I had seen it, so I apologize to Commissioner Atkinson. Because I said I hadn't seen it, but I had seen it. I had received it, right? Don't say I had seen it, but the couple of things, the FY15 budget review. This is where we talk about the Maximus study, and I don't want to get alarmist and see now most of the public's gone, so I can tell you what the number is. Not that I wouldn't say it when they were here, but the combined number is a little north of $1.4 million that they would say that we would owe the county admin for the services they provide, and the clerk for the services the clerk's office provides. Brings out to $950,000 for the county
Per year?
Per year, yeah. So that would be about 7%, I guess, of our revenues, or a little more than 7% of our revenues. To do, you know, we have our own lawyer, we have our own administration, but until we sit down with Troy and run through the numbers, I don't want to get everybody too excited, but you need to have this on your radar because it's going to come up, and we'll probably need some input from the council. The website development, one of the things I just wanted to, we've done a great job. I want to recognize John Cross and everybody that worked on it. But the goal is to make this the #1 website in this destination for information on events, on food, on travel, on everything. And we will achieve that. And you know, we believe in the iterative improvement process. If it doesn't become #1 in the next 6 months, then we'll update it again and to make it #1. But the events is the key thing, because that's what people want to know when they're down here. You know, where to eat, where to go, what's going on. They already know where they're staying. 8% of them or whatever, by the time they leave Atlanta, they know exactly where they're staying, so that's not as important. The parking space development, updates on that. The Topsail plan has gone into effect. The first weekend, Memorial Day weekend, we spent about $1,000 out of the $25,000 that the Board of County Commissioners approved on parking there. Had about 160 cars, had 24 bikes, and about 523 or 24 people that actually availed themselves of that went in, and so that's working. We are looking at a parcel on the west end that is owned by South Walton Utilities, but not the old spray fields, to do some kind of partnership with them, and possibly Resurrection Church is putting in a parking lot, so if we can help with that, and then show people, because when the tourists use it, the church isn't, you know, the church uses it Saturday night, Sunday morning, the tourists use it, you know, Sunday afternoon, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday during the day. So we'll update you, and we'll continue to look for parcels of land south of 98 greater than 3 acres to where we could put parking and shuttle folks to the regional beach accesses. The budget development, the one thing that is not complete is the personnel portion. We are working on organizational structure to make sure that we are properly structured for success 5 years from now. We're doing very well today, but the structure that we have is pretty much the same structure we've had for a long time. And so we're looking, is that the best structure going forward? Once we work through that process, we'll brief in August, and then the budget numbers will be final, or our recommendation to the BCC will be final. Finally, I want to thank the staff in particular. I want to thank Lewis, who's not here. I want to thank the marketing and communications folks, the admin folks, the beach ops folks, and the sales folks. You know, a year and a half ago, we couldn't have held this meeting in here with live streaming with a high definition TV. I mean, if you think about what this would have been like a year and a half ago with a projector sitting out in the middle of the room, you know, we couldn't record it, we couldn't live stream it, we couldn't do any of the stuff that we're doing today. And really, that's the hard work of a lot of folks on the team that made that happen and worked together to make that happen. So I just want to thank them for that. It's my presentation, and I get to take it pretty often. Subject to your questions.
Any questions? Any more questions? In that case, we got any additional comments from the public? Any additional comments from the public? And move to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. A second.
I like that. Adjourn. 20. Okay. All right. Well, I'm not last. Way to go, Jennifer. You won. Microphone's still on.
We didn't have such a long break.
Yeah. Good. Good job.
Really? Okay. Thank you.